What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days, 40 Nights, part 2 of the twice a day live stream extravaganza that your boy EJ does every weekday, Monday through Friday, where we do 2 live stream shows per day, one at 8 a.m., one at 6 p.m. Now, this one's starting a little late. Apologies for that. But around those times, we start every day, every Monday through Friday. And this one's going to be a fun one. We got to talk about some New York Mets news. The Mets are starting to get all their ducks in order as we get ready for pitchers and catchers and for spring training to get underway. And already there's an injury, which is kind of how it seems to go with the New York Mets. And this is a pretty big one. Talking about Francisco Lindor, he has a issue with his hand. It is a stress reaction, and now he is going to see a hand doctor to determine whether or not surgery is going to be needed. So we'll get to that right off the top here in just a little bit. Also, a major Mets star is going to be making a move out in the field. So changing positions continue to happen with the Mets. We've already seen what's happening to Jorge Polanco, already happened to Bo Bichette. Another Mets star will be changing positions this upcoming season. So we'll break that all down. Plenty of Mets talk to start this show. We'll also talk some Raiders. As the Las Vegas Raiders introduced their new head coach, Klint Kubiak, who's just off winning a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator for Seattle Seahawks. No rest for the weary. Right on Tuesday, he's in Las Vegas being introduced, getting it started as the next Raiders head coach. He had some comments about one Ashton Janty. He had comments about one Fernando Mendoza, kinda. And maybe the most important thing at this point is he had comments about Max Crosby and his future with the Raiders. So we'll talk about that as well. I definitely want to get into some Raider stuff because that is an interesting team, I think, to follow moving forward this upcoming season. So we'll talk that. We'll talk Kubiak and the Raiders. We'll also talk about some of the stuff we wanted to get to earlier in the day, including this whole situation regarding J. Cole and this new album that's coming out. That's out already, actually, The Fall Off. The Fall Off's out, and I know we've talked a ton about The Fall Off, so I'll leave that for other episodes. You want to go and listen to my commentary on what I think about The Fall Off and all the content for that. Again, you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts or, of course, on YouTube. But I want to talk specifically in terms of this situation with Cole about what he said during his AMA. This is something I wanted to get to in the morning. I wasn't able to get to it, but we'll get to it here. We're going to talk about what Cole said in terms of what the hope is for his future and if this is indeed his final album, which was what he said in his little letter that he wrote to the fans a week prior to the album coming out. He said that this was an album that he, quote, intended to be his last. We got a little clarity on exactly what that means for Cole, so I definitely want to talk about that. So we got a lot to get to, man. This is 40 Days, 40 Nights, your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live on multiple spots, including streaming live on YouTube. Shout out to the folks watching us on YouTube. Again, if you're checking us out, be sure to give us a like. Get in the comment section. Do what you got to do to make your voice heard. We definitely appreciate that. We're streaming live also on X, EJ_Stewards, where you'll find me on X, where we are streaming live right now. So get up on X if you're there. Make sure you give your boy a follow. And we're streaming live on Instagram, Action EJs, where you'll find me on Instagram. And, of course, all episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights get podcasted every day. So if you missed earlier in the day, you missed a doozy. This was one not to miss because my good friend and fellow former colleague Andrew Perloff was on earlier on 40 Days and 40 Nights, day 22 of this marathon that we're on, where we do 2 live streams a day. Andrew Perloff was on, and this was not a small little segment. This was not a small little spot where he comes on for 5 minutes, says hi, and dips. We went for about 45, 50 minutes, maybe even more than that. I mean, we talked about everything regarding the NFL, his thoughts on the Super Bowl. He, of course, was there on Super Bowl Radio Row, so he gave us little details about kind of how people were feeling coming into the game, and some feelings, obviously, about the NFL at large in terms of this upcoming draft. He also was at the Senior Bowl the week prior, so Perloff was all over the place, and he was gracious enough to come on the show, and he did a phenomenal job as he always does, and it was a fun conversation. And he got to, of course, update folks. People want to know what's going on with the future of Maggie and Perloff. He gave you a little update on that as well. So if you want to check that out, that is definitely something you want to do. Obviously, be sure to check out the earlier episode of 40 Days and 40 Nights with me and Andrew Perloff were rocking. That was quite a fun time there. So we got a lot of stuff going on, man. Again, 40 Days, 40 Nights. I'm trying to make sure I'm streaming live here. I am streaming live. Okay, good. Because I'm trying to make sure my account's correct. I didn't see it posted. I'm going to repost my live here just so that everybody can see that 40 Days, 40 Nights is getting going. Because I want to make sure everybody knows. Underway now. This is I'm posting this tweet in all caps. To make sure everybody knows, because I'm looking at my X account, like I see it says I'm live, but I don't see nobody acknowledging that I'm live. I'm like, where are the viewers and stuff? I usually got plenty of viewers on X almost immediately, so I want to make sure people know that I'm up here. So yeah, we're live on X, we're live on Instagram, we're live on TikTok. Oh, not on TikTok, but follow me on TikTok. And I did post some clips from TikTok. Speaking of Andrew Perloff, I posted a clip earlier where he spoke about what he's looking at when it comes to the future of the Eagles and who he feels like is to blame for how this whole thing got started with the season coming up short. And he pointed to one Jalen Hurts, and you can hear his thoughts about that on my TikTok, Action EJ, and also my Instagram. I posted it as well, Action EJ. So we talked Eagles, we talked Seahawks and Pats, obviously. He's a lot more higher on May than I think I am. I think we both thought he didn't play well, but I think he was going to put it more on his teammates, which is totally fine. May had, I said, no chance because they didn't block for him, and they didn't have any receivers who can get open. So it was going to make it a long day. So I know he's not fully to blame for what happened, but I did feel like this was a quarterback who seemed overwhelmed. And I don't know how long it will take for him to get back to that kind of stage. I think he's definitely a star, but I think we definitely have to punt the brakes when it comes to creating the Hall of Fame bus for Drake May. I don't think Perloff's all the way there. I think he's still very high on Drake May. I think he felt like he actually hit on Josh McDaniels a little bit, which I haven't heard too much about. I think a lot of people kind of watched the game and say, yeah, no, they were just overmatched, and that was it. And McDaniels, to his credit, was getting a lot of praise coming into the game. I also gave him credit. I'm like, this is a guy who's essentially made a living coaching Super Bowls when he coached Tom Brady for as long as he did. And he did not call the greatest game, to be honest. I hit him a little bit because I thought Trayvon Henderson didn't get involved early enough in the game. But Perloff felt like the coaching and the lack of talent around May was really the problem. So does that mean that the Patriots will be able to get back in playoffs? Again, all those things were discussed earlier today. This was a fun conversation. So be sure to check out day 22 of 40 Days and 40 Nights. Of course, when you're done watching night 22, don't leave right now. Hang out with your boy. But earlier, again, we had Perloff. That was a really good time and a really good conversation. Make sure you check that out. But let's get the ball rolling, man. Let's get to some of this Mets stuff. So it was a big day in Mets land, and it feels like this is becoming the annual tradition where pitchers and catchers get underway. David Stearns, or whoever the general manager is, has to come out and do their introductory press conference, being like, hey, guys, aren't you excited for spring trading? Yeah, we're all excited. Let's go Mets. And then you're like, okay, by the way, a very important player is going to be out for a little while. You're like, what? You guys haven't even played anything. You guys haven't done anything yet. How is somebody injured when you haven't done anything? And we've had it with Francisco Alvarez. We've had it with Sean Manaea. They actually were in the same year, I think. And Alvarez might have been a couple of times. Last year, Manaea was out and Alvarez was out. Every single year, there is a yearly tradition that the Mets are going to have some guy who is very important to the team show up injured and be shut down immediately, and you won't be seeing him out on the field for a while. And this one is a big one because it is Francisco Lindor. So he is dealing with an issue with his hand, and they have found a stress reaction after he talked to the doctors with the Mets, and they are suggesting, and now they are indeed sending him to a hand specialist to determine whether or not he needs surgery to fix this stress reaction. So I want to give David Stearns the floor to explain what's going on with Lindor. Here's his announcement about the injury that Lindor is dealing with.
Francisco Lindor is going to be evaluated tomorrow for a left stress reaction in his left hamate bone. Experienced some soreness in his left hand wrist area. over the past couple of days, informed our medical staff. So he's going to go to a hand specialist tomorrow.
Not good. Not something you want to hear. So how bad is this?
It is possible this will result in a hamate surgery. If it does, that's a 6-week recovery, which puts us right at opening day. So at this point, even if it does require a surgery, we would remain optimistic that Francisco would be back for opening day.
So there you have Stearns giving some slither of positive news with all this talk about the hamate bone that is bothering Francisco Lindor, and the stress reaction that they found is that if he does need surgery, they still think he could be back for opening day. I will say I'll believe it when I see it, to be honest. I think that the Mets, when it comes to their medical staff, which I know they've tried to make great improvements on, but they give you a timeline, and you got to take that with the biggest grain of salt. Not even grain of salt. You need a freaking golf ball worthy of salt, just pounded together in terms of the amount of salt you need to take into consideration anything that the Mets front office or their medical staff puts together. Now, I'm not saying that he can't be back relatively soon, but if you're talking about 6 weeks from now, season starts, late March, early April, you're telling me that he's going to have surgery potentially tomorrow, like he'll go in, and like the Mets, when you're a professional athlete, you can go in someplace and they'll say, oh, we'll just do surgery now, right? They probably scheduled a slot to see if you need surgery, let's get it done immediately, right? So let's say he goes and let's say he can have surgery tomorrow or even on maybe Thursday, and then he's all right. Now the 6 weeks begin, and that's the hope that he can get back in 6 weeks. That's going to lead you right up into opening day, but does that mean he's not going to have any training camp? He's not going to have any rehab assignment or nothing like that to get ready. He's just going to get ready to go after surgery and finally healed and go right back into facing Major League Baseball pitching. I have my doubts whether or not you'll see Lindor playing shortstop to start the season. Now, what I will say is one of the things I mentioned on the fan, I may have mentioned here, I'm not sure if I have, but I have said that I thought a fast start for Francisco Lindor was going to be vital for him and for the Mets this season, because so much of the conversation about losing Pete Alonso and losing Brandon Nimmo and the issues that apparently were being discussed with what was wrong with the locker room, a lot of fingers and eyeballs were directed towards Francisco Lindor as being perhaps one of the figures that was not able to quite get along with everybody, and that there may have been some kind of fission within the team where you had the Lindor part of the locker room and then you had the Alonso Nimmo part of the locker room. Guess who's here and guess who's gone? Nimmo, Alonso are gone. Francisco Lindor is here. And there are a lot of Mets fans who, because Nimmo and Alonso were homegrown Mets and they've been here for a long time and they've been very productive players, Alonso had been one of the best first basemen in baseball, they're still salty about the fact that those guys are not wearing Mets uniforms this year. So with Lindor being painted as a guy who potentially ran those guys out of town, whether that's true or untrue, that's just the reality of how fans feel. I said he better get off to a good start, and the Mets better get off to a good start, because he doesn't, and he struggles immediately, and God forbid if Pete Alonso's hitting 9 or 8 home runs in that first month with the Orioles, trust that there will be Mets fans on Lindor's ass, and it will become a big story about his early struggles, whether or not the Mets made the right decision to bank on moving forward with Lindor as leader of the team and not Alonso and Nimmo. That is going to be the conversation. So that's why I felt like Lindor, who is notoriously a slow starter, last year was his first year at the Mets where he actually got off to a pretty good start. That is not usually the case with him. He usually struggles mightily. And he can't afford that, I feel like. And this is not going to help, that he's dealing with a hand injury that is so painful that he had to go to the medical staff and say, hey, I think I get this checked out. He is someone who plays through a lot of injuries. Guy played through a broken toe, I think, and a broken finger at one point for the Mets in multiple aspects. He's a grinder and a tough guy. If he's talking about, I need to go see a specialist, or I need to go get something checked out, it is not nothing. So I take that very seriously for Francisco Lindor. So this is not a small thing. This is a big deal that you got with him with this injury. Other note about what David Stern said about this that I think is important to know too is here he is mentioning that this is pain that he has had in his hand for years.
He's had soreness, frankly, off and on there for a couple of years, and he's usually able to grind through it. And He's done it, and I don't know when he first felt it, but I think it just persisted to the point where he felt like he should say something about it. And once we examined it a little bit more yesterday, our medical staff determined that he should go see a specialist.
So that's where he's going. So we'll see what happens for Francisco Lindor. Again, I think that there's a lot of pressure on him this season. He is somebody that I thought, and he did, I think, but times change and things change, right? I felt like the postseason run the Mets went on in 2024, I thought really cemented him as the guy moving forward with the New York Mets and their franchise player and their leader moving forward in the face of the franchise. It was what they wanted for him, but he hadn't quite played to that level yet. He had been good, but he hadn't quite, played to that level yet that he could really put his stamp on and say, yeah, I'm that guy, and for the Mets fans to all embrace him. And then that season, as great as he was all season, obviously he finished, I think he was running off for MVP, right? Or top 3, I think. That season, the clutch hitting, the playing through injury, the monster grand slam against the Phillies, I think we were like, oh, okay, he is him. I'm a Francisco Lindor guy. I've been unapologetic about supporting Francisco Lindor and talking about how he reminds me so much of Carlos Beltran, who was also one of my all-time favorite Mets growing up, where he was a guy that came in with this massive deal, massive contract, coming off some big postseason moments, and because the expectations were so high and he had such a bad first year, I think it always took just a little while for the Mets fans to fully embrace Carlos Beltran the way they should. And now Beltran's going to go into the Hall of Fame wearing a Mets cap, which is super exciting. I'm really happy about that. But, if you would have told me that was going to happen definitely after Beltran's first year, I would have said, I don't know. And if you would have told me when he left the year that was going to happen, I still would have said, I don't know. He's an interesting guy. People still hold on to that first year and the fact that he struck out with bases loaded against Adam Wainwright. And to me, it's ironic that they're both Puerto Rican, but it's they're very similar. It's here's this obvious, amazing talent who has Hall of Fame capabilities and the potential to maybe be in the Hall of Fame one day, that for a while, not anymore, but for a while, a large fraction of Mets fans still were like, yeah, but is he really that good? I was not that person. And then he earned a lot of goodwill for that 2024 season. And then last year happened, and he had a great statistical season, but the whole team obviously collapsed the way they did in the second half of the season and the last month of the season, and they missed the postseason. And there already was a lot of hard feelings about how the Pete Alonso negotiation went down the year prior. So when you hear these rumors and you hear these whispers about, yeah, well, there's a little issue potentially with Nimmo not loving the fact that Lindor is being propped up as a potential team captain moving forward, considering he's a lifelong Met and Alonso's a lifelong Met, and all the different rumors you're hearing about this front office, about this locker room and this clubhouse not being on the same page. I felt like a lot of folks were like, all right, all that goodwill Lindor won for some, I think was taken off a little bit. I think he lost a little bit of that, to be honest. So I felt like he had to come out here guns blazing and have maybe one of the best starts of his career this April to kind of put all that stuff about Nimmo and Alonso to bed. I don't know if he's capable of doing that now. If he's dealing with a stress reaction in his hand and he's going to basically have no spring training and their hope is he's going to get plopped right into the lineup on opening day, knowing he's a slow starter, I think you got to just bake in that this is going to be a slow start for Francisco Lindor. The good-ish news about this is I think the Mets have the kind of team, they're a more complete squad this year, that I think they can overcome Lindor struggling a little bit to start the season, or if he's even not there. They have Juan Soto, they have Bo Bichette, they have what has now become a pretty deep roster and a deep lineup. A lineup that I think has, maybe not the same pop it had with Alonso, but I think more depth and more guys that I feel like will give you good at-bats. I don't know what to think about Robert, but considering the guys they have that are coming into the fray, I think that they'll be okay. I don't think that this is going to be, as a team, that they're going to have massive issues. I also think the big deal is they now have a starting rotation that I think can also stand up to a Lindor bad April. Whereas the team that we saw in the rotation we saw at the end of last season, that would have been a mess if you had to rely on those guys as your starting pitchers, and then maybe the lineup sputtering a little bit because Lindor's not out there. That would have been a problem. I think that now it won't be quite as much an issue because you'll have a stopper in Peralta, and we'll have McLean that's up already starting on the Major League roster. So you got two horses at the top of the rotation. In theory, we'll see, but in theory, Kodai Senga should be good to start the season, unless he doesn't get, knocking on wood, that he doesn't get hurt or something happen to him prior to, the games actually getting underway. But in theory, if you got those three guys at the top of your rotation healthy to start, I mean, the Mets should be fine in terms of being able to win games and be a good team that's near the top of their division to start the year. So that's the silver lining to this. I see a question already. Shout out to the chat again. If you want to chat about Lindor and the Mets, this is the time to do it. Or anything you want to get into, just get in the chat. You want to say hello, appreciate it. Tony HVAC 2 asking, you think he's doing this because he wanted to play in the WBC? So that's regarding. So that's the second part of this that I wanted to get to. So Lindor, kind of surprisingly, I almost talked about it prior to today actually, because I forgot when the news came down. It almost made one of my shows. I think it came over the weekend that he wasn't playing. So yeah, it would have been either a Friday show or maybe Monday morning show. But I remember that it was announced that he wasn't going to play in the World Baseball Classic, which was a stunner because of all these guys care a lot about the WBC, particularly the international guys. But I think if you think about a player that's synonymous with a specific country as being their captain and their leader and like someone who really takes the WBC very seriously, Lindor is about as synonymous with Puerto Rico as Shohei Ohtani is for Japan. Like, he takes this extremely seriously. Obviously, I have friends, shout out to Ariel, who was in the chat earlier today, and my good friend Martin Torres. I have friends who are Puerto Rican, who this is a huge part of their sports calendars when the WBC happens. And quite frankly, the Puerto Rican squad, because they've had other issues, because there are a lot of guys who couldn't get cleared. There's a whole other just Puerto Rico issue with guys not being able to get cleared. That's weird. But obviously, when Lindor was announced that he was out, they were already concerned about all the players that they couldn't get cleared to play in the WBC. And then Lindor was kind of like the final blow where it was like, oh my gosh, what kind of team are we going to have this year? And there were questions about, like, why didn't he get cleared? Now, they said that he had, so speaking of him getting to a slow start, he also had, like, some elbow cleanup procedure in the offseason. So, again, this is not someone who came back and was able to just rest up and be fine. He's had now multiple ailments. He had an elbow thing, then he came in, started working out, and now he's got a hand thing. I want you to hear from David Stearns here, finally, the last thing on Stearns on this topic, because they asked him, so what was the deal? Because what was said was he didn't get insurance to play, but then also he had an elbow thing. It was a lot of it was like multiple answers, but like not one directly in terms of actually why wasn't he allowed to play? Was it the elbow? Was it something else? David Stearns was asked about this, and he says he don't know why Lindor couldn't play in the WBC.
Yeah, I mean, we had nothing to do with that. I actually don't know why he wasn't given clearance. He wasn't approved for insurance. Clubs have no part in that. That's all done through the MLBPA and Major League Baseball. So I really don't know why.
So Stearns says, it wasn't me, dog. Don't look at me. I had nothing to do with that. Kind of like Drew from Everybody Hates Chris. It wasn't me. That's essentially David Stearns saying, don't put me in that. I have no idea why he couldn't play in the WBC. But there was a kind of thought that, he didn't get to play in WBC. Did the Mets have something to do with that? Is this him kind of be like, all right, if y'all don't let me play in WBC, then my hand hurts. Let me get to a doctor because I got to figure this thing out. That doesn't sound like Lindor to me. I know, and he had posted about, because I guess he announced that he wasn't going to play. He posted how this was devastating to him. Like, he really wanted to play badly. I don't think he's the kind of guy, in terms of, again, the pride he takes also in playing every day and being available to his team. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would be like, I'm going to play games with my health and maybe sit out some time because I'm mad that the Mets didn't allow me to play, or maybe they had some kind of, maybe not officially, maybe unofficially, they kind of greased the scales for me that didn't allow me to play. That doesn't sound like him. Not to say that it can't be him. It just doesn't sound like something I can see Francisco Lindor doing, because he also takes pride in playing every day. He takes pride in being a guy that's available to his team. So I can't imagine that he would like the fact that he could potentially miss weeks and weeks, or however long he may take to get right this season. I can't imagine that would be something that he would do. So it's definitely a good question, Tony. I appreciate the question. But and it's something people are asking about in terms of what does the WBC have anything to do with any of this stuff involving Lindor. And right now, it's just unclear. So we'll see, man. The Mets come into what is a very important season. I came into this offseason extremely pessimistic, and then they got really bad when you lose Diaz and then you lose Alonso. I sit here today more optimistic, more not panicking. I think when you have Bichette and Peralta coming over, it really kind of settles, I think, all of the concerns I had. There are going to be some issues. We got to figure out if Devin Williams has learned that he can, once again, still be a top-notch closer, or is he broken forever for that 1 year playing at Yankee Stadium and being taken deep by Pete Alonso in the playoffs. If he can get back to being old Devin Williams, he may not be Edwin Diaz, but that's pretty damn close. He would be one of the best closers in baseball. So hopefully Devin Williams can be the closer that he was in Milwaukee. He's working with a guy who was instrumental in his development with the Brewers, so I would hope that he would know how to get Devin Williams right, which is going to be, of all of the question marks for the Mets this season, that might be the number one question mark that they have to figure out. We've talked a ton about like Bo Bichette playing third base and what's going on with first base. The third base question I'm not as much concerned about. First base is concerning, but I'm not going to go crazy yet. Like, shout out to my guy Andrew Perloff. One of my favorite Perloff quotes is, well, we were doing a segment on Rafael Devers when he got traded, and Maggie and Pearl, they were very opposite. They were very opposite on like the situation, and Perloff was adamant that the Red Sox were in the win and were money that they were able to get rid of this guy. Obviously, Rafael Devers is a former World Series champion and was a face of the franchise for the Red Sox. But Maggie, on the other side, was like, how could you say that? This is Rafael Devers. And he kept explaining how ridiculous it was to him that Rafael Devers wouldn't want to play first base. Because he's like, it's such an easy position to play. And I know, I'm sorry to baseball players. This is not my take, to be clear. But it's a funny take. He's like, it's first base. It's where they put the fat guy in a softball team. Like, what could be so horrible about it? Why would you be so against it? Like, he probably should play there because he's not that great as a third baseman. So it was beside himself that, like, Rafael Devers would have all these issues. And I only bring that up because I know Keith Hernandez, if you're watching me, please don't hurt me or think I'm an idiot or think I'm a bad person. I love Keith Hernandez. I know how important first base is and how tricky it is and the skills it takes to be a first baseman. But yes, it is the position that you're probably putting one of your less athletic people to play in, that and catcher. So Polanco played second base. I know he wasn't great at second base, but he was able to play it. I'm like, if he can't play first, that would suck. But I'd hope they could find somebody else that could play first. Like, okay, could Vientos just play first and we figure this thing out and we put him at DH? Like, I just think the first base thing is something that they could figure out. Alonso was there and he wasn't that great at it anyway. So, like, we had a guy who wasn't that great in it to begin with. I know he was an awesome offensive bat. That was why Alonso was so missed, and he will be missed not being here this year. But I'm like, it is first base. Like, I don't want to go ballistic and go crazy about, like, and I'd be clear, this is kind of me. This is what happens when you go through, like, an off season of chaos as a Mets fan. You know, because I was one of those people that was hysteric about, like, why are we having all these question marks with all these positions? Like, David Stern says he wants to improve the defense, and we have all these question marks. It is a question mark. But, like, as time has moved on, I'm like, oh, I think they'll figure this one out. Like, I think, okay, if Polanco, for some reason, can't do it, I can't imagine there isn't somebody on the roster who can play first base. Whether it's Beatty, whether it's Vientos, whether it's... I would even like to see Mauricio get a shot, maybe. Like, just anybody. Like, I think they would be fine. So, anyway, that's just one of my favorite Perloff stories. One of my favorite, like, sometimes I go back and just look at all our videos on Maggie and Perloff's show and our socials. That video is still, like, one of my favorite videos. It's not even, like, a comedy video. I just think it's just he literally says, it's first base where the fat guy plays. It is the funniest thing to me. But I thought about that when I was thinking about first base. So, that's a question mark for sure. And then right field, which we'll talk about in a second, is now, we thought it was left field. Now right field is a big question mark. Again, somebody will play there that can play the outfield. But I think Devin Williams is still the biggest question mark because Diaz was such a weapon as your ninth inning closer the last 2 years. When he was so dominant late in games and you could just salt games away knowing that nobody was going to be able to touch him. If you're in a situation where, I mean, Devin Williams, it was like the polar opposite. Like, you think about how reliable Diaz was, that's about as unreliable as Devin Williams was last season. If Devin Williams is what he was with the Yankees, the Mets have a major problem. And you could say, well, okay, we'll just move Weaver to that spot. And Weaver was good as a closer for the Yankees when he had to step in for various different other guys, whether it was Clay Holmes or Devin Williams. But Luke Weaver's coming off a bad second half and a terrible postseason as well. So I want to make sure Luke Weaver is going to be on pins and needles and ready to go. By the way, I miss me with caring about that Weaver came to training camp with his old Yankee bag. I've not cursed yet on this show. I'm allowed to. There's nothing that's stopping me. And I kind of want to curse because this is the most ridiculous story ever, but I won't. I do not give a rat's ass about what kind of bag he is wearing and what team it came from. Like, it is, to me, the most useless thing to me. I know that we got to have content. I know we got to play the game of Mets versus Yankees. And what does this mean? Like, it doesn't mean anything. It means that probably was his favorite bag. Someone who, listen, I worked at WFAN. I still do. I always kind of remind myself I still do. They're not full-time, but I do work there still. I'll be on, by the way. It's this Saturday night, 7 p.m. Make sure you're there. Be there, be square. I'm sure we'll be talking plenty of Mets. But I work at WFAN still. I then was working, obviously, at Infinity Sports Network for the last 4 years. And I don't know how many times I would go out in the street. I might have even worn it to work, wearing my Spectrum News New York 1 sweatshirt, that my zip-up hoodie. Guess what? Because it's one of my favorite hoodies because I don't have many zip-ups, and it's really comfortable. And I just wear it. I didn't come into work thinking, oh, well, people think that I miss New York 1 or am I disrespecting WFAN because I'm wearing this Spectrum News New York 1 hoodie. I'm like, what are we actually talking about? What are we doing? It's a damn bag. It probably is a bag that he likes. It's probably the most convenient one, and that's why he used it. And the Mets probably didn't send them new gear that's personalized. I could not care less about a bag. And I think it's funny that Yankee fans and Yankee people are the ones that keep wanting to run to something about former Yankees still having feelings about the being a Yankee now that they're Mets. It's not something that we don't have any Mets that have gone over to the Yankees recently that I can think of right now. Or I guess I'm Rosario, but that was wild. I just can't imagine me caring about that. But they have made it a story, but I think it is the most nonsensical story. I could not care less about the bag. It's funny, you had Tony also in the chat being like, I don't care about the bag either. Yeah, the bag stories, man, get out of here with that. Again, I almost cursed again. That crap is ridiculous. I mentioned the thing about Weaver in terms of him coming back last year. Tony makes a good point. Shout out to Tony, man, carrying the chat so far. Weaver got Russ back last year and pitched hurt. We hope to have him healthy. Yeah, that was the thing. Is that essentially? I believe it was hamstring. It was hamstring or groin. I know it was a lower leg. I know it was a leg thing, but he pulled his hammy. He went to the IR and just never was the same. And like hamstring injuries are like nothing. They're extremely hard to come back from, and they can become nagging, even if it's not a torn Achilles or a torn ACL or anything like that. It seems like, oh, you pull a muscle, you'll be able to come back and just be 100%. I love one of my favorite drops towards the end of the Maggie Perloff show was the Troy Aikman being like, I pulled my hamstring on a treadmill. I haven't got back on one since. Because it's real, man. Like, you pull those hammies. I remember I pulled my calf. Funny story here. I'm kind of going all over the place, but this is what I can do because it's my show. We were trying to buy a Peloton, and so we were at the actual Peloton store. So they're doing like the actual demonstration to let you get on the bike. Like, it was dope. I enjoyed the experience. But like, what I still kind of struggle with, I've gotten better at it, is the getting off the bike, because I got one of the new joints where like you clip your feet into the bike. And so I'm on this thing, and they trying to explain to me how to do it, but I'm not getting it. And I tried to twist my foot off that joint, and I pulled my calf. I was like, whoa. That was the first time I ever pulled like a lower leg muscle. I never pulled, knock on wood, I've never tore an Achilles, never tore a hamstring, never pulled a hamstring, never pulled a calf, never pulled anything. So I never felt that sensation before, but I was like, oh, this is insane. Like, I felt miserable. And like, I understood, like, I don't know how people try to play on these like strains. Like, it was, and my thing probably was a grade 1. It wasn't nothing serious, but I felt like I was kind of not myself for at least 2 months, where I was like, I definitely didn't want to run or work out or anything like that, because I was like, I don't feel comfortable on this leg. And eventually get over, but like, this is a professional athlete who's throwing 97-mile-an-hour fastballs. I think he's not going to be 100% healthy after pulling his hamstring. So I hope you're right. I hope that that's the case. I also hope that like this is the nagging thing where he maybe pop it again, and that's because he is 33 years old. He's kind of near the end of his prime. So that's just something to follow with Luke Weaver moving forward. But nonetheless, yes, his health situation is a situation. And thank you. He said groin. Yeah, I knew it was either hamstring or groin. Both injuries they happen, and again, they don't sound that bad if you don't have a serious tear or anything. But it's just one of those things where it doesn't quite feel right for a while. And hopefully now he'll be much better. So the last thing on this whole Mets bow, we talk about some Mets baseball. They're getting ready for pitchers and catchers and getting ready to start a spring training. By the way, I talked about Yankee baseball a little bit in there, needling some Yankee fans, in part because I saw the good brother Keith McPherson was getting on Weaver for the bag. Keith McPherson, by the way, will be on 40 Days and 40 Nights live tomorrow morning, 9:15 a.m. So I do my 8 a.m. show, 9:15, the starter pitchers and catcher for the Yanks. Keith McPherson will be on from WFAN to talk Yankees baseball, and I'll probably needle him a little bit on the Weaver thing as well. But that's gonna be very exciting. I'm excited to talk Yankees too, because I always tell folks I love talking Mets. There's some personal pain though that always comes to talking with Mets because I'm so invested. Sometimes I kind of actually, in terms of doing this job, like whether I'm streaming or whether I'm on the WFAN, sometimes I actually kind of like talking about the Yankees more. I actually find it a little more fun. Maybe because I'm not as attached to it. And also there's just the aspect of like the Yankee lore and like the expectations being at the absolute highest. I just think it creates for fun dialogue and fun conversation. So I'm excited to have Keith McPherson on and talk Yankees because a lot of people say, oh, you're a Mets fan or you're biased or you're whatever. I'm like, I actually like talking about the Yankees, and I'll big them up when they deserve credit. I'll definitely get after them, and anybody's listening to me on Fan know my first day on the Fan, my first hosting show, I called for Aaron Boone to be fired, and for if they didn't fire him, then for Brian Cashman to be fired. That was my very first show, so I am not afraid to take shots at the Yankees per needed. I did that show because they had just lost Game 3 of the 2022 ALCS. That was the Lou Trevino game where Boone comes in, pulls Cole with the game on the line to go to Lou Trevino in the 5th inning or 6th inning, whatever it was. And, of course, he blows it, and the Yankees go down 3-0 to the Astros, and they eventually got swept. But that's going to be a lot of fun. But to wrap it up quickly on the Mets topic, so it wasn't just the Lindor news that was big news. We also got the news that there's going to be a position change. Juan Soto, who was the starting right fielder for the New York Mets, now will be moving to left field. So this kind of came out of nowhere. Here's David Stearns announcing the decision to make the move.
Juan Soto is going to play left field for us this year. Over the last month or so, as Mendy and Juan were talking about the season, Juan was working out in left field because he's going to play left field for the DR and WBC. As they had their conversations, he felt really comfortable there. It made sense for us from a roster perspective, so we're gonna go forward with it, and everyone's on board with it. Not something we had really contemplated coming into the off season, but as we've had conversations over the last month, it made sense for all involved to do this.
So kind of a random stunner, and I know again now you add another player that's being moved to a different position, but to maybe quell some of the concerns from Mets fans who are like, why or how are we moving Juan Soto to a different position? Here's Carlos Mendoza, who also kind of talked about that conversation he had with Soto and how it began with him simply asking like what his plans were for the WBC playing for the Dominican Republic.
We started getting closer to roster construction with the WBC that I asked him on a conversation that we had. I said, where are they going to have you playing in the Dominican Republic? And he said, I'm playing left field. Tatis is going to play right field. I was like, how do you feel about that? And he was very honest. That's a position that I feel comfortable as well. When I first came up with the Nationals, my first 2.5, 3 years, I played in left field. They then moved me to right. My last year I was in right field. Then I get traded to the Padres. So he started going down the road. Then it's like the following year, Tatis was back and they put me in left field. I think that was my best year with outfield assists.
So this is not what we see with Polanco, where you have a guy who's never played the position saying, all right, go over there and play a random position you never played before. And you'll figure it out. You'll be fine. Like he's actually saying, like, listen, I played left field before and I'm playing it for the WBC because obviously we have Tatis who's going to come back and he's going to play right. and that's where he's most comfortable. So I move to left, and it'll be fine. So that conversation then sparked with Mendoza being like, "Hey, is that something you can do for us?" And Soto was like, "Sure."
I said, which one, you feel more comfortable? And it's like, I feel really good at both, he said. But I'm getting ready to play left field. And say, and I just asked him, how would you feel to play left field for us? And it's like, I'm willing to do whatever. If you want me to pitch, Mendy, I'll pitch. Kind of like with that smile, right? And then I was like, is that something that now, seriously speaking here, is that something that you will consider? And if it makes sense for both, it's like, absolutely. Like I said, he reinforced it and said, I'm comfortable in right, I'm comfortable in left, whatever the team needs. So I got off the phone with him and gave David a call.
And that call, then they said, let's go with it. So now you have Soto playing left field this season after playing right field. And first of all, I want to commend Soto, because I think that this is a selfless move here, because this is going to help the team if he can play left field and have no problems, because his arm strength, which is not the greatest, doesn't become much of a factor in left field. And now you have the possibility, if Carson Bench is ready, which I think now this to me tells me that is their plan A, that they want Carson Bench to be the guy that can play right field, which is what his natural position is. And if he can do that and his bat is good enough to start on the major league level from opening day, now you have a rookie coming up who has, as a shout out to Tony, he's up there, has a cannon now playing in right field. That improves your defense, and that improves the overall team. I don't know if Soto knows who Carson Bench is. Like, he might not care about that. It could have just been like a happenstance that they're just, just something the Mets were probably discussing. Oh, man, like, how are we going to figure out left field? And it definitely was a conundrum. That was probably the number 2 question mark for the season beyond, I think, is Devin Williams not going to blow up this year? And, Soto was like, oh, yeah, I'm playing left field in DR. Do you like playing left field? I love it. I think I had my best season over there. Would you mind doing it for us? I don't care. Whatever you want. And it's funny hearing the back and forth, because, like, Mendoza keeps trying to, like, ask him, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? He's like, yo, I'll pitch. I don't care. As long as I'm in the lineup every day, I'll help the team. How he is. So shout out to Soto. I think this is selfless that he's willing to say, yeah, I'll move. I don't care. He's the freaking $700 million man. You would think he doesn't have to move anywhere, but he's willing to do whatever he said, whatever the team needs. What I appreciate. And again, now I kind of wonder if this means, all right, they really want to see if they can get Bench to start the season right in right field and get this thing going. That also makes me wonder if those questions about whether or not Beatty, could he potentially be traded at some point. I know Stearns a couple weeks ago said that he had a conversation with Beatty. This was during the Bo Bichette signing, and that he said, hey, listen, we're going to be part of the conversation in the outfield, in second base, in DH. Like, we're not getting rid of you. You say that to a guy, but, it's a business, right? If you are in a position where now one of the outfield options that is being mentioned as one of the options that could start there, if he gets a kind of a bump up, because now he could play right field, I wonder if that does make Beatty more expendable, even if it's not prior to the season, but maybe by the trade deadline or at some point during the season. They say, hey, listen, like, Ben just got the spot. He's playing fine. We don't really have a consistent spot for Beatty. I don't want Beatty to go. I feel like he is someone that should be playing every day. I would find a spot for him. If he's the everyday DH, he's everyday DH. If he's playing the outfield, he's playing the outfield. I'm sure to keep Marcus Semien fresh, I'm sure he'll be able to have some opportunity to play second base. I think that would be smart for him as well. I think they'll find some at-bats, but the only thing about Beatty, I'm going to change my camera a little bit. Sharpen that a little bit. Get that super high definition. But no, the only thing about Beatty that I'm a little concerned about this year is if he is really going to be yo-yoing completely all around the diamond, I just don't want that to affect his bat at all. I think one of the things that helped him last year was that he started the season playing primarily just third base. And I think if he has to be in a situation where he's playing second and he's playing third and he's playing outfield and he's DHing, he finally figured out how to swing. He finally figured out how to be a productive offensive player, which is what the upside was of Beatty coming up as a prospect. He was expected, I don't want to say he was going to be next David Wright, but I think there was hope that he could kind of take the spot that David Wright had left vacant at third base, that he could be the franchise third baseman moving forward, and his bat was supposedly that kind of impact bat potentially. and he saw some flashes, but there was so much inconsistency, and I was done with Beatty before last season. I said I just don't think he's a major league player. Last year he was great. I think that he was there a season that didn't have a lot of bright spots. I thought Brett Beatty was one of the biggest bright spots for the team last year. So, and I'm not saying I would not have sacrificed. I would sacrifice getting Bo Bichette for him for a second. I would do the exact same thing the Mets did. But I do feel like in terms of figuring out how to figure the rest of this thing out, I would hope that they find a way to get him out there to play every day. I just hope that it doesn't affect his bat. That if he is having to learn right field and then play second and play first and play all over the diamond, that's just something to watch there. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited about this Mets season despite the Lindor injury. Juan Soto moving to the left. This is a big year. I saw the fan graphs. I saw that they had the Mets making the playoffs but not winning the division. I think they had the Braves winning the division. I've said this before. I think the Braves are food, man. Like I don't look at the Braves, and I'm that's usually famous last words for a Mets fan. But I'll be honest, I feel like the Mets exercised a lot of demons in 04 24, with that final series and winning that last game, or second to last game technically, to get to the playoffs and beating the Braves in that way. I think like that moment was like, okay, all my anxiety about the Braves, that's kind of gone. Like we can see them. I'm not worried about them. But yeah, I saw the Braves were actually in first place, which surprised me. Because I think they are better than the Phillies this year, and I'm excited to get that smoke with the Phillies because they like talk a lot over there, especially some of their commentators and some of their radio hosts. So I love that little rivalry we have with them. And Atlanta is no different. They talk smack too, but they've had a lot more to stand on, I think, in terms of the history of the rivalry. I don't know. I think that the Braves, I know they got Snicker out there, and maybe that means you get a better Ronald Acuna. That guy he's the street clothes of Major League Baseball. You want somebody guy's always hurt. That guy you can't rely on. And I hope he's healthy. Like, I don't wish any guy to be injured, even if you're on a rival. I want to beat you guys at your absolute best. So I hope he can be out there and be healthy for them this year. But I got to rely on him to be healthy this season. Matt Olson now a year older. Like, I'm not... I know the Braves had a down year. I didn't think they were going to be that great last year, and I was right. I think that we're in a different era of baseball where we don't have to worry about them being perennial divisional winners. So I was a little surprised that Fangraphs had them better than the Mets. So we'll see what happens. I know their starting rotation is pretty good, but I would take the Mets in terms of picking teams out of the division right now. I think the Mets are the best team in the NL East. It'd be nice to win it for once, like all these freaking years where they've not been able to win the division. The fact that they went to the World Series in the NLCS within the last 10 years and it still didn't win the division in those years. The fact that they won 101 games was like second most in franchise history and still didn't win the division. It's just like, why can't we win this damn division? Why? It's so annoying. So hopefully they find a way to get it done. So there's your Mets talk, man. That was fun. I got to get to do a lot of Mets talk. And this is baseball. Shout out to Ariel. Ariel earlier today was like, yo, when are you doing baseball previews, man? I'm like, listen, I got you. We're going to be talking plenty of baseball. We were deep into the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl and college football playoff we had going on. That's crazy. That was a while ago. That was the early parts of 48 and 49. So I had to sit here and give you guys my Miami tears. They lost during the college football playoff. But we had so much to get to with football. We're going to get to plenty of baseball talk. We'll have probably a full baseball preview by the time this is all said and done. So and now the Mets, they had their annual, hey, somebody's hurt this year. Let's talk about it press conference. So I knew baseball was coming. We're going to have plenty more baseball to talk on 40 Days and 40 Nights. Again, this is 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live on YouTube, streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart, streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. If you're watching this, do me a favor. Big favor, and it helps. If you can, liking this video, give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Helps with the engagement, helps get more people to see the videos. It's a big deal, and again, it's just a great thing for us. So if you can help us in that way, we greatly appreciate it. Also, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, even if you're not, take some time to go over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. That is our YouTube channel where we stream live and where we post all our videos. That is the creative hub of me and my two brothers, Shamari and Kendall Stewart. They do shows and content on this channel as well, and we do not just sports, we do superhero stuff, we do Star Wars stuff, which is three of our biggest passions, sports, superheroes, and Star Wars. So they're a big part of this. We've seen them now on the show. Kendall comes on every Friday. We've had Shamari on as well. He was on last week. So if you can head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media, we would greatly appreciate that. I mentioned earlier the podcast episodes get podcasted on all platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn. If you're checking us out on the podcast, be sure to subscribe to that channel as well. New Generation Podcast Network. NU, that's to be clear, it's not spelled N-E-W. Carlos mentioned that a couple of days ago when I was on Into the Winklerverse. Shout out to Bart Winkler and Carlos Ortiz. If you're looking to search, it's NU Generation Media on YouTube, NU Generation Podcast Network on wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the channel and give us a 5-star review if you can. Again, all that support definitely helps us, and we greatly appreciate it. I want to get to some football and talk about the Raiders as they introduced their new head coach, Klint Kubiak. He is, of course, the former now offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks, where he just finished winning his first Super Bowl ever, and his first Super Bowl, obviously, as offensive coordinator. Now he goes from the mountaintop all the way to the bottom, which in some ways there's kind of beauty in that like journey that he's going to begin. Right, he goes from literally winning the championship and coaching for the team that had the best record to going for the team that had the number one pick in the draft and is at rock bottom. But to be honest, I feel like if you're a Raider fan, there hasn't been many reasons to be optimistic. I feel like this is the time where I would start to begin to feel optimistic. You do have the number one pick in a quarterback draft where I think Fernando Mendoza is 100% that guy. He's sold me. I was very skeptical. Even in the playoff, I was so skeptical about whether or not he was truly the number one pick in the draft. And I wasn't in love with the fit with the Jets. But he's a guy to me that got better as the year went on, which is scary because he was really good during the regular season. But the precision he had during the playoff games, and then the toughness he showed in the finals, where maybe the precision wasn't as there because Miami's defense was so tough and they didn't make it easy for him. But the toughness he showed in that game, and then he showed the intangible aspect of his game. He's got all the tools, man. He's a little bit of a geek, I'll be honest. But for a football player, he's got everything you want. So I think that you should be optimistic about the number one pick being Fernando Mendoza. I think you should be optimistic about Klint Kubiak as your head coach, because I think that now you have what you haven't had in a long time, which is, I think, an elite offensive play caller, which is what all these people want now, right? Like we've had plenty of conversations on this show, and I do think some of this has been kind of skewed too much to offensive coaches being the only coaches that can be successful. We just saw a defensive coach win a Super Bowl calling the defense. So again, maybe we should think more outside the box in terms of what a team needs. But the Raider offense has been a problem, it seems like forever, really. And now you get Kubiak, a true offensive guru, working with a young quarterback of Fernando Mendoza, who I think he will fit together like a hand in glove. I think that these guys, I think we saw what Sam Darnold and what his skill set is. I think him and Mendoza are pretty similar. If I was actually making a comparison for a quarterback to compare Mendoza to, I think Sam Darnold would be one of the guys I'd look at. Is a pocket passer, but is accurate, can make all the throws. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. Let's hear from Kubiak. One of the things that we were talking about, before we get to that, let's talk about that number one pick in the draft. Because again, he was asked about what you feel about Fernando Mendoza, what do you feel about having the number one pick, and he was smart to not give it all away.
Well, I think just the resources that the Raiders have, this building, obviously having cap space, having the first pick, those all go into the decision. And as far as who the first pick is going to be, we got a lot of tape to watch before we determine who that's going to be. But I'm excited to get into that process. But
so he's saying, hey, listen, there's a lot of things I like about the Raiders. I like our resources. I like we got cap room. I like we have the number one pick. Who's that going to be? Tune in next time for Dragon Ball Z, right? Which is smart. You don't want to give it away. You don't want to give up your leverage, right? Like, because if someone comes up and says, hey, we'll give you 10 years worth of first round picks for Mendoza, you don't want to, give away that you're definitely going to take him. So that's just football stuff. But I have no doubts that Fernando Mendoza will be the number one pick in the draft. So I think that for a Raider fan, you watch Klint Kubiak during this postseason. Super Bowl wasn't the greatest, but you watch him during this postseason. You watch the Seahawks this season. and the leap they took this year offensively after McDonald fired the entire offensive staff last year, brought in Kubiak and the new offensive staff this year, and then obviously brought in Sam Darnold. Quarterback offensive staff change goes from a team that's a 10-win team that's kind of average to a Super Bowl champion, and that's dominant. I think you should be very excited, I feel like, getting this guy in. Of course, his dad was Gary Kubiak, so he's not new to this. He's true to this when it comes to the coaching profession and being around professionals. Gary Kubiak, I actually think, while he was a head coach, I don't think was all that appreciated because I think the Texans were kind of seen as underachievers. I think that now after seeing like Bill O'Brien and David Culley and Lovie Smith, I think we look back and I'm like, oh man, Gary Kubiak probably wasn't that bad. And Gary Kubiak always was a good play caller. He went over to Denver, and he obviously won. He won a Super Bowl, right? I believe with the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning. He was on that staff. I forgot what his role was, but Kubiak is a guy that I think kind of came into the NFL. Like he obviously had great success with Shanahan as a play caller, but I think he's kind of seen as like a meh kind of head coach. And I think towards the end of his career, I think he got more love as an NFL head coach because he said, "Hey, this guy's actually pretty damn good," and he he was the Denver Broncos head coach, and he did a great job coaching the Broncos. And you look at his Raider record, you're like, his Texans record, you're like, you know what? For taking over a team that was more or less an expansion team, you could have done a lot worse. And yeah, the guy won a freaking Super Bowl. So yeah, you got to give Gary Kubiak some love, and that's the legacy that Klint Kubiak is coming from. I always say, most of the time we hate nepo babies. Most of the time it's because they are given positions that sometimes they don't quite deserve. I think football coaches is like one of the few spots where I think we all are fine with nepo babies. I always say football coaches, music, and movies. Definitely movies and football coach. Music sometimes is a little tricky, but will definitely give you a chance. But movies and in politics, that's the other thing. We also love nepo babies in politics. If you're a nepo baby in politics, you're a nepo baby in Hollywood, and you're a nepo baby in football coaching, or really almost any coaching, to be honest, because the NBA's got a lot of nepo babies too. We will say, oh, yep, that person is the guy, or they're the gal. Like, they'll be totally fine. We love nepo babies in sports. And I think with Kubiak, A, he's got a good legacy, but B, also, I think he has shown that he's a good coach. Like, this guy, when you're hiring a head coach, it's kind of like the NFL draft. When you're drafting a quarterback, even the most sure thing sometimes isn't a sure thing. And you're like, wow, I thought that was going to go great, and that went terrible. You don't know for sure, but I think the Raiders lost out on Ben Johnson. I think that was a crusher last year. I think they really wanted him, and as we now see, like, that would have probably done a world of difference for them had they had Ben Johnson this year. I think getting Kubiak is a really nice consolation surprise. They had to wait a year later. They had to have a disastrous year with Pete Carroll, but now you got the number one pick, so I think that worked out for them. So the other big story with the Raiders beyond the number one pick is what is the future of Max Crosby? Because remember when we got word about what was going on with the Raiders towards the end of the season, you remember, because the Raiders aren't dummies, they told Max Crosby, we're tanking, we stink, we have a big game against the Giants where we have to lose this game in order to make sure we get the number one pick. Go home. You have some kind of injury. Your knees hurt or something. Go home. We don't want you here, and rest up for next season. And he was pissed. He went on social media talking about how he didn't like it. He was playing basketball in his what looks like really cool house in Vegas. That he has a full court basketball court, and he's taking step back, one-legged. What kind of shot is that? Kind of fadeaways, like he's dirting the whiskey in his driveway or in his actual his house. It was an actual full court. It looked like in his house, and you're like, that doesn't look like a guy with a serious knee injury where he can't play football tomorrow. So, and apparently he was upset. When they told him this, he was at the facility. He kind of stormed out of the facility. Again, it was kind of like the Brown situation with Jim Schwartz, where I told you how awkward it was that we knew everything about Jim Schwartz's last day at the facility with the Browns. I'm like, why do we know the TikTok of everything that's happening with him being told he's not going to be the head coach, and he's like going crazy, and he's disappointed, he's emotional, he's crying, and so like, why do we know all this? Shows you leaky organization. But The same thing happened with Crosby. Again, another bad organization, leaky organization, where like we hear about, oh yeah, he was here, and then they told him to go home. He was mad, and he told everybody he was mad, and then he stormed out of here, and now he's at his crib, and he's upset. And I'm like, why do we know all of this? Because it's the Raiders. And then he's posting on social media, then he's shooting his fadeaways in his backyard, saying that he's fine. So I think there was a little thing about, man, is there, for someone who eats, sleeps, breathes being a Las Vegas Raider, being a Raider, they talk about the Raider way and the commitment to excellence and just win, baby. Like, that is not lip service for if you're really about it, right? This is a lifestyle. It's kind of like a once a Knick, always a Knick. If you know what the Knicks fans are about and what the Knick community is about, it's very much the same when it comes to the Raiders, even though they've played in now 3 cities. It doesn't matter. If you're a Raider, you're a Raider. And if you live this, this is the team for you. This is the franchise, and it's a way of life. They've had a rough 20 years. So we haven't had maybe so many guys that have embodied that spirit or really taken that spirit to heart. Some guys, quite frankly, haven't been there long enough to take that spirit to heart. Max Crosby is really the next guy to usher in, like, oh yeah, this guy is what it means to be a Raider. If you want to argue that maybe the last guy was Tim Brown, and again, that's kind of sad that we're going that far back. Maybe you could say Derek Carr. He was there for a while and was a pretty good player. So maybe Carr may be the conservative pick, but if you want to be aggressive, being like what it really means to be a Raider and a hardcore Raider, I think you're probably going back to someone like Tim Brown. That's a long time ago. He's about this. So that situation made people wonder, hey, is this a situation where they're going to have to mend this fence? Should they even care to mend this fence? Like, to be honest, like, this is a bad team that probably needs to rebuild, and he's a guy that is still effective as a pass rusher. Should they be considering to trade Max Crosby? Here is Klint Kubiak. He was asked, hey, what do you think of Max Crosby? He said, oh, I had lunch with him this morning, or coffee rather. It was pretty nice.
We want him to be a part of our success going forward. And there's no doubt about that. And he's one of the best players in the NFL. So that's a no-brainer to get to work with Max and to see him continue to have success with this organization.
So there he's saying that he obviously wants Max there. This was the soundbite we say he spoke and had coffee with him. It was fun.
I got to drink a cup of coffee with Max this morning. Love talking ball with him, and look forward to continuing those conversations. I think he was the first one in here this morning working out, so that fired me up.
So this is an interesting spot for the Raiders. Now, Crosby, if you trade him, you're getting at least a first-round pick. No question about it. He's that good. I don't know if it's going to be in this year's draft because everybody knows where they're slotted, so I don't know if they're going to, I think you're probably better off saying, hey, maybe we get a first rounder for next year and then have, the mystery of what that pick's going to look like. Whereas now, if you're a team that's drafting top 5, I don't think you trade for Max Crosby. You're probably only going to be able to get, a late first-round pick. So I would assume next year is probably the year where, or rather, not even next year trading him, just that, if you're getting a first-round pick, you're probably looking to a pick from next year. But he's that good, he's that dominant a player that I think he would net that. I'm torn on this, and a little how the sausage is made in terms of when you do streaming, when you do sports content, it's like, oh, don't be torn, go one way or the other. But damn it, the one thing about this show is I'm about being honest. I want this to be the most honest version of EJ, the most authentic version of EJ. Is what I say is what I want for 40 days and 40 nights. I'm torn on this one because I see the obvious reason to potentially trade him. You can get great capital. You get out for that money, which he's owed quite a lot, even though they have a pretty good cap sheet because no one else gets paid there because they all stink. But you get off that money, so it gives you even more cap flexibility, and you get another young, maybe cheap talent who could come in and be another star if you're getting a first-round pick. First-round picks are gold. So I get that aspect of it, and that's probably the right call, is where the Raiders are, even with Fernando Mendoza coming in. They still have Ashton Jeanty. I still think the Raiders aren't going to be a winner next year. I love Klint Kubiak, but I still think this is probably, at best, a 6-7 win team next year. They're playing in a hellacious division. You still got the Chiefs, and then you got 2 teams that made the playoffs in the Chargers, who did lose Jesse Minter, but they still made the playoffs 2 years in a row, and the Broncos, who were the number 1 seed, and may have been the team in the Super Bowl had Bo Nix not gotten hurt. So they're playing in a hellacious division. They're not going to have the easiest schedule, even though they have an easy schedule, like a last-place schedule. I think if you're saying, oh, this Raiders team is going to be a 9-win team next year, that seems rich. I think if they can get between 6 and 8, 6 wins, 8 wins, I think you say that's a pretty successful first year. I'd even take Like they won what 3 this year. I think I'd even take 5, like even a 2-win improvement. And if Fernando Mendoza looks pretty good, I think he's okay. We're heading in the right direction. So I see that aspect saying, hey, let's trade him. It may take a step back in terms of the talent on the roster overall, but for the assets, it would make sense. This is not going to, if Max Crosby's there, he's not making you a playoff team, I don't think. But there's something about when you have a team of losers and all they've experienced is losing. And what they have is a roster of guys who don't have the right habits and don't do the right thing and don't know what it means to be a Raider, which is what they have. They have a bunch of losers. I'm sorry. Like, they've been a losing team for however many years. They were the worst team in the NFL this year. Like, respect to them for making the NFL, respect to them for being professional athletes. Like, I can never do what they do. But in terms of comparing them to other NFL players in NFL locker rooms, they're a locker room of losers. Max Crosby is not a loser. Max Crosby is what you would want in terms of being an all-time character guy for that organization or for any organization. It may be a waste of his talents in terms of him. Like, if I was him, I'd want to get out of there. But he seems to love being a Raider. He definitely loves Las Vegas. Las Vegas is made for this guy. He loves being at the UFC fights. He loves wearing he's always rocking the platinum diamond chain that looks massive. He loves just being out on the strip. He just seems to be a man of the people, a man of the city. So he fits with everything that the Raiders want in a franchise guy, in the face of the franchise. They may still lose, they may still stink, but he almost may be like their Larry Fitzgerald, where it's like, or Megatron. I know these are offensive players. But it's like, okay, we can lose this guy, but like, it might be good to have this guy around. Like, it might be good for other players to see this guy's work ethic, see what he brings, see the kind of character he is, see how hard he plays every week. And, okay, if we have to trade him 2 or 3 years and then we don't get the first-round pick we want, or if we just ride this till the wheels fall off and he retires a Raider, which isn't the worst thing in the world, I don't think it's going to kill their team. To me, like, killing your team is what the Giants do by screwing up not getting number 1 pick in the draft. That's like screwing your team build, where you say, hey, winning meaningless games is more important than getting the number 1 pick. That's like idiotic team building, in my opinion. I don't think keeping a guy who's a superstar that wants to be on your team, that is, by all accounts, a great locker room guy, and a guy who could set the tone for whatever the next iteration of the Raiders are going to be with Klint Kubiak, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's something that I would want. So that's why I'm torn. I almost today, if you ask me, if you really held me down and say, what is your decision? I may lean to keeping him, at least for this season, and see if, I think he'll have another great year. I think he'll play well, and just, he's going to have Mendoza coming in. He's going to have a lot of other young players and other guys that are going to be signing in free agency coming in. I want somebody there that's a locker room leader that can kind of grab a chokehold of the locker room and say, hey, this is still my team. It kind of reminds me of when Michael Irvin was on the America's Team documentary, that the Jerry Jones Dallas Cowboys 90s documentary, which was really good. I gotta get back to finishing it. I love you want to stop EJ in his tracks. Show him a documentary of anything involving sports in the 90s, and I'm hooked. You got me already. And now early 2000s too, because that's not also kind of my childhood. It's like my teenage years. And Michael Irvin talked about how, he mentioned when he entered the NFL draft, Jimmy Johnson kind of already had word that Jerry Jones, who was his friend at the time, very close friend, was not that keen on Tom Landry. And he said, hey, go, man. Dallas is interested in you. I know they want you. I've already said a good word for you. And, hey, after your rookie year, your second season, I may be there with you. And sent them off. Michael Irvin's like, what the hell does that mean? And, of course, Jimmy Johnson famously then became the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And Irvin tells a story where when Jimmy gets hired, he goes into Jimmy Johnson's office first day, hands him a list. It says, you want to build what we had at Miami? You want to get this thing on the right track? There are a lot of losers in this locker room. We got to get the hell out of here. I've given you a list of the players that you need to get out of here one way or another if we're going to turn this team into a winner. And that was Michael Irvin as a rookie, entering his second year. It shows you how crazy he is and was. But that's him, and we know Michael Irvin was the ultimate Dallas Cowboy leader during that time. And he was doing lots of off the field that was not great and stuff, but in terms of the locker room, he was the locker room leader, no question. I think you look at with Max Crosby, he could potentially be that for Kubiak. Like, Kubiak's coming into a new situation. He don't know what the hell's going on over there. He shows up to a team that was supposed to be kind of competitive and tried to win now, and they were the worst team in the NFL. I'm sure Max Crosby can have a lot of opinions about the kind of guys that are on that team that is screwing this thing up. So if I was Kubiak wants to win. He don't want to lose a million games in a row. So I'm sure he wants him just because Max Crosby's a good player. But I also would want Crosby around because I want someone to be like, I need like an enforcer in the locker room, somebody in the locker room that can get my message out. Like, I'm a new coach. I won a Super Bowl, so I come with some cachet, but I've still never been a head coach before. So I need someone that had my back, like, and to be the guy that can get my message across. I would love to have a guy like Crosby to be that guy, because who the hell is standing up to Max Crosby being like, get out of my face about this stuff? First of all, if you see Max Crosby, he's a scary looking dude, even for NFL guys, I think. But also, again, just he's a well-respected dude, and I think you want that guy in your corner. If it's not going to be him, who the hell in the locker room for the Las Vegas Raiders is going to be your enforcer? It ain't going to be. Tell you what, it ain't going to be Fernando Mendoza. Cam Ward came into Tennessee, and he had to learn some lessons about, like, hey, man, you're a rookie, and people are just going to rock with you like that, because he came into Miami when he was a Hurricane and just changed the whole locker room and just took over the team because he's that strong a personality, and he tried to do it at the Titans. And I think, there's a lot of hope for Cam Ward, but there are a lot of growing pains. There's a lot of, like, we're not really listening to this kid. He's a rookie, So that's Cam Ward. Think about the strong personality he is and how I can't remember the last, like, quarterback to enter the NFL that takes themselves as seriously as Cam Ward does. And even him, the Tennessee Titans loser locker room was like, yeah, whatever, kid. So imagine, I don't want to say that because that's like, I don't want to say that. But imagine like the pure heart that is Fernando Mendoza going into that locker room. They ain't listening to him. Like, listen, if he plays well, he shows the things he have. They'll run the route. They want to get paid. They want to get the ball. They want to win. But in terms of like that rah-rah stuff, they ain't listening to him. And he's not going to be guys say, hey, listen to Klint Kubiak, guys. Like, that's not going to happen. You're going to need someone who has, as Bruce Pearl said, some hair on their ass to get that message across. I feel like Crosby could be that guy. So during the regular season, I said them not trading Crosby was ridiculous. I said when they started tanking, I was like, this is probably the year to trade Crosby. I'm kind of sitting here now, I'm torn. I kind of lean that, you know what, maybe for this year, I would maybe keep him. Now, if you think next year, he probably still can get you a first-round pick even next year, assuming he has another good year. So I would, for this year, see how it goes with Crosby and see how much they improve. Because you may be in a situation where, like, maybe in 2 years, the Raiders can't be a winner. Or in 3 years, the Raiders can't be a winner. And Crosby may not be at the peak of his powers, but he'll still be close enough where he could be an impactful player and a helpful player. And I think there is something to keeping guys around who want to be Las Vegas Raiders. I think that's a huge thing. So, Klint Kubiak gets introduced as Raiders head coach. I think if you're a Raiders fan, this is a good time to be optimistic about the future of the team moving forward. Again, this is 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy EJ Stewart. We're on night 22 of this extravaganza. Let's get to the chat here. We got my good friend Rob DeRay in the chat. Say, Michael Irvin and that doc should win an Emmy for Best Supporting Actor. He's incredible. I don't know what to say. And I want to be clear. I know there are things about his life that obviously are very unsavory. He says he's doing his best to try to live right and do right. So, like, I got to take him at his word until I see otherwise, right? But the person he is right now and the personality he is, he's an American treasure. I mean, he in that doc, again, he was phenomenal. It was like, as great as Jerry was, and hearing the commentary from Jerry, because he's Jerry Jones, right? He's a walking quote. Michael Irvin was awesome in that documentary, and when you hear him in that doc, you understand why he was the leader of the team and the heartbeat of the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s. He's just a trip. He's just a trip of a man. And I'm trying to think of I saw something from him recently because he launched his new podcast. I know he talked about, like, so I always try to be careful. Like, I know folks have mentioned this about Michael Irvin, like, oh, like, clearly he's back on that coke when he's doing all this crazy stuff, and Michael Irvin's like, I haven't done that in years and stuff. And again, I don't know what his journey is, but I know, like, sobriety is very serious. I try not to joke about that, only because, like, Kurt Angle, the wrestler, actually kind of really changed my views on that because we think, oh, we're just having fun, it's just jokes, whatever. But again, something like drug use and drug addiction is not something really to play around with. And, Kurt Angle talks about, like, and we don't do it with Michael Irvin. I don't think it's being done, like, as, like, a disrespectful thing, not in its intention. And with Kurt Angle, when people talked about his drug abuse, and, they do it again and kind of, like, treating him like a superhero because we know Kurt Angle had issues with drug addiction and drug abuse during the prime of his career in WWE and in TNA. But yet, some of his best work was surrounding some of these times where he was getting popped with drug abuse, and people started giving him the name, quote unquote. And I'm only using this just because it's what people said. No, Kurt hates his name. They were calling him Perk Angle because he was, he was on Percocets and all this different stuff. And Kurt Angle talks about how hurtful that is to him. Because he says, like, as bad as my addiction was, I couldn't do what I was doing out there on a mat and in those rings and putting those performances being on Percocets. It would be insane. I could kill myself or kill somebody. And also, like, hey, I've moved on in my life and I'm sober and I'm trying to be a good person, and having that thrown in my face every time, whether it's people who are just trying to say, hey, Perk Angle, just not even in a disrespectful way, just like, yo, you were a legend, like showing up to like signings and things like that, like, they'll say that to him. He's like, he doesn't love it. So I know a lot of people have changed it to Peak Angle, to try to flip that. I kind of feel the same way about Michael Irvin. Like, he doesn't talk a lot about it, but he talked about it recently on this new podcast he does with, Brandon Marshall, where he was I don't know how they got into it, but he was like, I haven't done that in a long time. Like, I don't do that anymore. What you're saying is just pure Michael Irvin energy. And I can be naive. He's a crazy person. Like, he might just, it might just be him. Like, I don't run to he's got me on something to be Michael Irvin. Have you seen Michael Irvin? Like, he's just kind of always on one. So I know he had mentioned that. But the thing I've mentioned Irvin before, he had a comment recently where he was going off. I almost did it on the show. He was going off about all these kids transferring. I forgot which player it was that made him do it. It was not Mensa, who I'll get to in a second. But it was something about the transfer portal. And he's doing his Michael Irvin thing. He's like, you gotta believe you can't just quit where you are, and these kids don't want to compete. When I see a kid transfer, that means he don't want to compete. You see a depth chart, and he's going off. This is not part of the show, people. This is like they're on the set of whatever the show is with him. Shout out to them. I know it's on Netflix. I don't remember the name of the show. I think it's maybe Michael's House, maybe. But if that's not the name, apologies. But I know it's on Netflix. This is not part of the show. This is not, he's doing this bit for part of the show. This was just a spontaneous thing, maybe after their show or before their show, where someone with a cell phone video just so you know, like, this is who Michael Irvin is all the time. He's just on some random rant going insane about the transfer portal. Like, as insane as he is on the sideline for the Miami Hurricanes and pulling out the belt and going BTA on a wall or on a water cooler, that's just how he is all the time. He doesn't need the cameras, knowing the cameras are on and he's mic'd to become that. That's just who he is. I thought that was the funniest thing, that they just caught some random Michael Irvin after a show, before the show, felt some way about the transfer portal, and he's on some 3-minute rant, just going insane about, like, as a football player, you got to compete and you got to want it. And like, it's insane. And I'm watching this rant, and the spirit of the message, I agree with. But I'm like, Michael, we just went to the national championship with a transfer quarterback. We're going now 3 years in a row where we keep getting transfer quarterbacks. Like, kids are saying, hey, I want to play for the school I'm at. I want to go to Miami. And you're on the sidelines celebrating big Miami wins and college playoff wins because of transfers. like Miami has killed it in the transfer portal. So I'm like, playmaker, I love you as much as anybody who does this probably. But we can't say that. We gotta not that you're maybe entirely wrong, but we can't be the ones to be like, hey, these transfer portal kids, they gotta just learn to compete, or they gotta grind. They can't just want to run to the next great team or run to the next great opportunity. I'm like, no, please keep running to your next opportunity, because they keep running to Coral Gables. I love that Cameron Ward ran to Coral Gables. I love that Carson Beck ran to Coral Gables. And I love that Darian Mensah is now running to Coral Gables. Like, please keep doing that. Like, don't put that message out there that they should consider, no, I'm going to stick it out here in NC State. I'm not going to go play in beautiful 80-degree weather and sunny skies. I know it rains a lot in Miami, but you know what I mean. Play in paradise, playing for the U, and make this bag I'm going to get from playing for Miami. I'm going to go stick it out at, I don't know, North Dakota State. I'm like, no, don't worry. We want you. We want you. So shout out to Michael Irvin. Shout out to the Playmakers. Shout out to Robin Ray for the comment. And shout out to Kurt Angle as well. As you guys know, I'm a big wrestling fan. We will talk wrestling on this show before we get out of here. But keeping the things going here, I mentioned I wanted to wrap the bow on Cole, and I think this is important. So we'll talk about that real quick. So J. Cole announced, obviously, that he had done this album to fall off. The intention was that this would be the intention of it being his last album, which meant, oh, is he retiring? And then he's had these various different lines and different songs he's done where he's talked about, oh, I'm contemplating retirement, and he's throwing that in there. It's made people think, oh man, when the fall off comes, I guess that's the end and J. Cole's gonna retire. Well, we got some clarity about exactly like what we can expect when it comes to J. Cole and his future. And it's not as simple as he's retiring. J. Cole, by his account, says he's done making solo albums, but that you will still hear from him, and that he's now wants to take a more production type approach to his career. He wants to do more producing. So let's read some of the posts from Cole himself. This came from the Inevitable platform that Even has, that he's been working closely with, and he did this AMA where he was allowing fans to ask him all these kind of questions, and these were some of the answers. There are a lot of really neat answers if you're interested in Cole, interested in his career, and just interested in him. Plenty of different answers, but these are the ones in terms of newsworthiness about what his future holds. These were the most important ones here. So on future album for J. Cole, he said this. They asked him, like, love the album. What's going on? Is this the end? He said, thank you. It means a lot. I got a genuine love for music, and the blessing in dropping this album is that I'm highly inspired. I have no interest in making more J. Cole albums, but my passion and excitement right now is in producing. I will write, I will record when it hits me, release new music if the spirit says to do so, but the fall off is a project I won't try to top. So that is kind of like the update in terms of where Cole is, in terms of what to expect from him, and is this retirement? He says, no, there's not going to be no more Cole albums here. More from Cole in terms of what he's looking forward to in this new era of his career. He said, I want to make beats, produce for other artists, even if I'm not making the beat, just helping to craft the vision. That's a big passion of mine that I haven't been able to lock in on. Because for years my focus was on me and my story. I think my gift is maybe even greater when I'm more selfless, in a more selfless role. So holding on that, there's one more post I want to show in terms of what other music could be coming, because apparently there's more music coming. I don't know when or how soon, but more music is happening for J. Cole. So you actually will get another J. Cole album, it sounds like. But on the fact that this is kind of like where he's at in terms of not wanting to do more solo Cole albums. Is he done with solo albums? I think the most important thing is, he says, right now I'm not inspired to do Cole albums, which is probably how he feels right now. But I think my good friend Ray Jarvis said it best when he was on last night, where he said rap, and really music in general, but particularly rap, is like wrestling, where does anyone really retire? Jay-Z famously retired after Black Album, where I think everyone knew there was no chance he was retiring. I feel like Lil Wayne has retired and come back and made albums. I feel like so many rappers have come back and made albums. Musicians have come back and made albums. Because, like, when it's not like sports where you physically can't do it anymore. Like, to keep playing football at age 50, like, it's actually a danger to your life. They'll play basketball or play tennis at the age of 60, like, is a danger to your health to try to do that. So you have no choice but to put down the ball, or put down the racket, or put down the club, or put down the baseball bat, or put down the hockey stick. You have no choice. You can't do it on that kind of level because your body won't allow you to. Artistry is different. Yes, can you go do a stadium tour or for Cole an arena tour at age 70, like that might not be the best idea. Can you do certain things with your voice and songs and different kind of things where you push yourself physically for certain things? Maybe not. But to be an artist, to make songs, to even make albums, you can do that really kind of till you lose your voice, like until like you can't speak anymore. Really, you can do that as much as you want. And he's only 40, right? 40 or 41. Like he definitely has plenty of years where he can absolutely still rap. I mean, Nas is in his 50s making incredible rap albums, right? So he's nowhere near as a spot in his life where he can't make J. Cole albums. He's saying he can't do it right now, or he doesn't want to do it right now because he put all this energy into the fall off. So, and I get that. I believe him. I just don't. I believe that he feels this way. I don't believe that he's never going to make a J. Cole album because he says, I'm not inspired right now. Well, yeah, you're probably not inspired right now. I think there may be a time when you're 49, when you're 50, when you're 46, when you're 55 even, who knows, where you may say, feeling good. I feel like I'm inspired by something. I see something out there. It makes me want to write. It makes me want to do something, and makes him get in the booth and makes him make an album. I don't think that this would be the last J. Cole solo album, to be clear. Now, it brings up a question about, all right, well, if he's not doing solo albums, he's not doing J. Cole albums, quote unquote, what will he make? Well, we know that JID had said that he and Cole had already done like a 12-song project that he thinks is amazing and that he hopes will eventually come out. So there's that project. Cole never, I don't know if somebody didn't ask because I wasn't in this AMA, but I saw him be like, how the hell you guys got Cole into a situation where you could ask him anything? And you didn't ask him about that damn, that damn freaking, what's the name? That damn JID album. Or, you know, where is the Kendrick Lamar verse and album we were talking about as well, right? Like, there seemed to be obvious questions that people didn't ask him. I don't know if they weren't afraid or maybe he ignored those questions. But the JID album was something that JID just announced on the Joe Budden podcast that we never heard about. So when I heard that, I thought, okay, is that kind of the next phase of Cole where if he is rapping, maybe he is doing more collab albums, where maybe he's doing a collaboration with JID. Maybe he's doing a collaboration with, like, I know Miguel had recently said that he would love to do a collaboration album with J. Cole. They have done really awesome work together. I think that I always feel like artists have musical soulmates, both male, female, male, female. Like it's not gender related. I kind of always felt like Cole and Miguel were kind of music soulmates. It seems like his style and what Miguel brings to a track, the two songs they've made, they both were awesome. So I think that maybe this is the beginning of maybe Cole maybe doing work with other folks. Whether he mentions producing, and that I think is a big part of that. I think you will also hear him rap on other albums moving forward, but I think you'll now see him do more of that though, where he's not taking the entire brunt of the attention, where it's going to be him and someone else, which I would love to see. I would love to see, obviously, him and JID. It sounds like it'll never happen. I would love to see him and Hove have an album. Like, I think, like, you know, who knows what that relationship is at this point in time, but, you know, Hove was not on this album. There was hope. I think there was some hope that people thought that Hove would be on this one. They've only been on 2 songs together, just A Star Is Born and Mr. Nice Watch. Which Mr. Nice Watch, I don't think J. Cole fans, they think about it as a big moment, but I don't think they look back on it as like, this was a great song that you go back to a lot. I don't think many J. Cole fans go back to that song. I don't think many Jay-Z fans go back to that song. A Star Is Born is. That is I think that is an important song for Jay-Z's career. I think that's an important song, definitely, maybe arguably the most important song of J. Cole's career. So they have one legendary link up, but considering this is his protege, this is the guy that launched his Rock Nation brand, I would have wished and hoped that they would have more music together. Who knows if there's a falling out? Who knows what's going on? They've just been silent on whatever their relationship is moving forward. But maybe that's something that's possible. Like, you know, maybe that's something where they work together. I think that there's something that's possible where collaboration albums I think can come. That'd be my prediction for what the future for Cole is moving forward for rapping, is for the foreseeable future. Maybe not a solo Cole album, but maybe you'll see him and JID work together. They've already have apparently. Maybe they put out multiple projects together. Again, maybe he creates a tandem with someone like Jay-Z, or some other rapper out here that maybe we don't think about, right? Like Drake had his run with Future. We've seen a bunch of other collaboration albums, Rick Ross and Meek had an album. Like I actually think it would be really cool to see J. Cole in that environment where he's being pushed by another rapper or another musician. Because what we keep talking about with Cole is that as good as he is, some of the pitfalls of his career I think have been when he has gotten maybe too much into his comfort zone. If he has to work with another artist, it immediately takes him out of his comfort zone. I always think about when I watched that documentary for Revenge of the Dreamers 3, when his verses on there are great and his performance on there is great, but like it was very interesting to see like when it was happening, the making of it, how he got there, and he immediately got writer's block. And I found that interesting just thinking about J. Cole's career, because again, I would say out of his comfort zone. Thinking about that guy and his pen, how great a writer he is. And he's making he's with all these artists who are, young stars in their own right. And he gets in that room and he's like, I'm so focused on making sure everybody's good or whatever. And then also I'm so like kind of awestruck by the people we have in this room. And now I'm having trouble coming up with lines. It's like, I think that's part of what he needs. I think he needs to push himself in that way. So I hope that he does do that. That would be my prediction for what you see from Cole's rap future for the foreseeable future. I think that you'll see another solo Cole album, but it won't be something that's recent. I think the more stuff you'll see recently is going to be collaborations, and him producing I think is real. I think you will see him do that. That does bring me to one final thing though. I mentioned that there is apparently more solo Cole music coming. Cole, when he put that notebook out where he talked about all of the projects and things he had to do before he got to doing the Fall Off, he named it the Fall Off era. He kind of almost did like a Marvel movie where Marvel has like the Infinity Saga, and this was like the Fall Off saga. So he had like the features, then Revenge of the Dreamers, then something else. Oh, Off Season, and then he never put Might Delete Later, but then he had a project or something that said It's a Boy, which nobody knew what the hell that was. They're like, what is that, an album? Is that a mixtape? Like, what's going on with that? We heard Might Delete Later, which wasn't on that notebook, and then we got the Fall Off. So we're like, all right, It's a Boy just not a thing? We're going to move on. Cole says, no, that is still coming. And he posted this on that same AMA where he said, it's not scrapped, it will release. We almost put it out before the album, but with the Birthday Blizzard tape and 24-song album, we was like, it's a lot of music to process, which is probably right. I don't think we needed 3 Cole projects in a short amount of time. The Birthday Blizzard wasn't that long. It was only like 15 minutes. But it was like there was a lot into the rollout. There was a lot of detail into it. So I understood saying, okay, with that and then this 24 double album, do we need another album, whatever this project is before that? Probably not. I'm curious what, like that, it's such an odd name for an album or a project. I'm curious what this is. So we'll see, but apparently that is the last, I guess, J. Cole solo project for the foreseeable future. You will see. But that's the update on Cole in terms of his future. To me, he is still too good at his craft to quit rapping, so I really hope that he continues to rap. I also feel like Ray said yesterday, and I'll say this in my final thoughts on the album, like, it gets better the more I listen to it. I listened to it today, and I'm like really kind of listen to it now that I have a feel for what's coming with every song. It allows me to actually really like maybe not be like just like trying to take in as much as possible with every single song when you first listen to the first few times. Now that I've been with it for a little bit, now it kind of gives me to kind of relax. I can kind of like take in certain elements. Like today, for example, I was like, all right, I really want to like lock into like, I always lock into lyrics, but like I want to lock into like the lyrics and the cadences in terms of like what he is trying to do. And other songs, like I want to lock into the production here. Like I'm able to lock into certain things now that I know what I'm hearing, and it's growing on me a lot more. Like every time I listen to it, it's like, okay, I like this a little more than I did yesterday. Even some of the songs that I thought were skips, I was like, the track before the bonus outro on the first Disc 29, I was like, oh, actually, this is a pretty good song. I kind of like it. So it's growing on me. I don't think it's as good as the Off Season. I don't think it's as good as Born Sinner. And I don't think it's as good as Forest Hills Drive. I think it's in that KOD lane, which I like KOD. And that's not bad. I have a poster for KOD, so it's not a diss. I think it's going to land where KOD landed. I feel like I like KOD a lot more than most people did when it first came out. I loved KOD. KOD's still, I think, really good. But But I think where it's like, okay, you don't mention that as like one of Cole's best projects, but it's good. I think that's why I'm going to think of the Fall Off. I'm like, okay, I will mention this as one of Cole's best albums, but I think it's a really good album, and I would listen to it and have no problem. And we'll see how it grows, but I certainly do love, I still got love J. Cole, and I'm hoping that we do get to see him make more music in the future. So wrapping things up, I did want to talk about wrestling before I get out of here, man. I want to thank you guys again for rocking with me tonight on 40 Days and 40 Nights, night 22 here. Big news in WWE, man. Bron Breakker, who is one of the young stars for WWE, a guy that they are considering to potentially be a future main eventer. I think he was actually maybe in line to be in the main event of WrestleMania this year, but then we heard the reporting that plans changed. He has undergone surgery to repair a sports hernia injury that happened at Raw last week, and Raw was on last night, and the way they described his injury was he's out indefinitely. And then there's been now reporting that he could be out as much as, I saw 6 months. Like, this is not a short-term injury. It seems to me, with the way they're pitching this is going to put him out of the WrestleMania picture completely. Which is, it makes this a weird situation, because if you look at kind of the WrestleMania landscape in the story, one of the big storylines they were doing was, who is this masked man? As I spelled Bron Breakker wrong, make sure I correct that. I was like, is there two N's? There's definitely two N's. There's one N. I think there's two K's, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, maybe there's not. Let me see. Bron Breakker. How do you spell Bron Breakker's name? I should have known this when I wrote. Oh, it's two A's. I was right. I knew there was two something, right? Let me just fix this real quick. But no. It's a big blow, because one of the big storylines for WrestleMania wasn't a main event storyline, but one of the big storylines they were doing was clearly the fall of the division that's looming. Is they ostracize Seth Rollins, Bron Breakker takes the mantle as the leader, and things have kind of gone to the crapper since, right? Like, he was in this feud with CM Punk, and I think, again, it seemed like plans changed. It looked like, for a while, I was like, okay, this is the guy that's going to dethrone CM Punk. But then they kind of supercharged that feud and like kind of auto-simmed to make it go super fast to get to this feud that we thought maybe was going to be for WrestleMania. And then they made it for just a payoff on a random Monday Night Raw. And CM Punk wins the title, and he moves on. He's done with the division. That's it. It's over. Which was like, wow, okay. That's a shift from where it seemed like things were going with Bron Breakker, where he was supposed to be, again, this future main event guy and someone that they were going to put over in a major way. And, he had some good promos with CM Punk. He had a good match with CM Punk. The feud was good. It just seemed weird how it went down. It wasn't at a pay-per-view. It seemed, again, like they kind of rushed it a little bit. And the plans that it seemed like they were setting up for Bron Breakker to be that next world champion, obviously now not the case, because he lost to CM Punk. And that was a one-off. That was it. So then they're setting up the rest of the storyline where these, Adam Pearce keeps getting into the way of the Vision, and it seems like maybe he kind of now become biased against the Vision, and there's all these questions about what his role is in terms of what's been going on with the Vision. So it all culminated during the Royal Rumble, where I still think some people thought Bron Breakker was a possible guy that could have won the Rumble still. I think he was probably one that's still betting odds on favorites. He gets announced first by accident to be number one. Then the next day they corrected and make him number two. He's a number two. He comes out and he immediately gets attacked by this hooded masked man who keeps showing up. Like, I thought this was a one-off, and we've seen this guy now, 3 weeks in a row? He showed up at the show in Saudi in Royal Rumble. He showed up that Monday night where, Bron Breakker, was flipping over tables and doing his Bron Breakker stuff. And then, even though Bron Breakker is out of the picture, Masked Man shows up again and costs Austin Theory an opportunity to be in an Elimination Chamber match. So it's still odd in terms of like what the plan is for the Vision moving forward. Now that Bron's, he's not in the storyline, he's out of the picture. Are they still going to move forward with who this Masked Man is? I was playing the safe game and saying that I thought it was Seth Rollins. What I'm figuring out, what I'm thinking is, I feel like this Masked Man, whoever you think it is, I wouldn't pay close attention to who he looks like under the mask. I think they could just be taking anybody and putting them in that mask, and then it'll end up being someone else. But because everybody's like, oh, it's Finn Balor, and they're like, no, it's not. Finn Balor has a famous hand tattoo, and then this guy doesn't have a tattoo in his hand. I'm like, and the last guy definitely looked like Logan Paul in the mask. But then you see last night, Logan Paul is chasing after the guy in the mask. So I guess that eliminates Logan Paul. But then, I don't know. Maybe this is a long game Logan Paul is playing where now he has someone working for him that's also in this mask. Who the hell knows? I think that gets a little goofy. I'm really hoping that's not the case. So I've been playing it straight. I think that is Seth Rollins. I think that Seth Rollins behind all of this. But the hope, I think, was to set up a match between Braun and Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, and now that's off the table. What do you do with this? Do you make it Seth versus Division as a handicap match? Do you just play this up past WrestleMania even? Like, do you put the Division and get them involved with someone else? And the Masked Man's kind of this shadowy figure in the background of another feud. This is a big kind of shift in the storyline for them. They already shifted by moving Bron Breakker out of the title picture, and now this big story about the fall of the Division and this Masked Man who is now costing them matches. Braun's not even going to be there to figure out the situation was and who he is. Do they change? If it was Seth Rollins, do they change it to somebody else? Do they just keep it Seth Rollins and they just wait for Braun to get healthy? I'm fascinated by how they're going to play this moving forward. With Bron Breakker, hope he gets better soon. He's a great young talent. I think that I said it on the show. I thought he was a little too green maybe to be pushed as a world champion at this point. He's close, but I thought they made the right call. I said this when I talked about the CM Punk decision to have him face Roman. I thought they made the right call to pause. Now, him getting hurt sucks. That's what sucks. Because, all right, pause. He'll have another prominent WrestleMania storyline. And I think maybe you could put him over during this WrestleMania storyline coming up. And then he can be ready for maybe a championship challenge at SummerSlam. Or maybe by next WrestleMania. This kind of puts a damper on all that. So we'll see what that ends up with the future of Bron Breakker. And last story, man, I've been talking about wanting to do this story, and I couldn't for various different reasons, but I was like, damn it, I'm going to find a way to get it, because I just think it's an interesting conversation. So, AEW star Ricochet, he went on a Twitter rant. At this point now, it's probably almost about a week ago. I think it was like last Thursday, maybe last Wednesday or Thursday, where he went on a Twitter rant where he was really candid about what he felt was damage done to his career because of his time at WWE. So he's currently with AEW. He's been there now for, I guess now about a year. Last year he was obviously with WWE. He had been with WWE probably since 2018, I want to say. He was there for a while, like at least 7 years. And he's still bitter about that time. He is someone that when he came into NXT, he was someone that was seen as a future star. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson literally posted on his social media, like, this is the next great world champion for WWE. Congratulations to Ricochet when he was signed by WWE. So, like, you want to talk about a rub? It just does not get bigger than The Rock saying you're going to be a future world champion. So, there were a lot of high hopes for Ricochet. He had been a superstar on the Indies, and he was known for these high-flying acts, and now he's going to bring that to WWE. And to be honest, like, it started off pretty good. His NXT run was really good. He was North American champion. He had some amazing spots, and it seemed like things were going well. He got to the main roster, and things kind of seemed to stall for him in terms of his development there. And it seemed like, Vince McMahon booking didn't seem to quite be able to figure out how to use Ricochet and how to turn Ricochet into the star I think they all hoped he could be. So Ricochet is still bitter about that. And here's the stuff he posted on social media. So he wrote here, I want you to read this. I'm going to close this down so you can see. So he wrote on Twitter, they took my love for wrestling away. I'll never forget how I felt walking into work every week, and that platform was only to make others look good at my expense. I told them I'd rather quit and go back to the Indies and make whatever I make there than come back the next week. So harsh words from a harsh man, to quote Rocky. And then more from Ricochet, and this is where I think he may have ruffled some feathers at WWE. Where he posted this, and you'll read this on the left side of me, because I was like, I didn't know where to put this. So he said, same thing happens to Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Apollo Crews, and many others. WWE kills legacies and love of the sport. It's what they do best. And somebody responded, good question. So I have a serious question, and I don't know how rude this will sound, but I don't mean for it to be. Why do you think it's been different from the other guys you named, for guys like Sami Zayn AJ Styles and Kevin Owens, guys who have been given that opportunity and grew their legacies, arguably. Then he says, I'd argue El Generico has a better legacy than Sami Zayn. That is, of course, the Indies character that Sami Zayn was in Ring of Honor and other promotions before becoming Sami Zayn on WWE. He wasn't El Generico on the WWE main roster or on NXT. So I want to say this, and I tweeted about this a while ago. So I had a long tweet, so I have thoughts about it. I've been wanting to talk about it, and we haven't been able to get to it for various different reasons. But I do want to get this off of my chest. I feel like, number one, I think that some of us are getting worked with this. Like, a lot of people are getting in their feelings about this, and by that standpoint, Ricochet is doing his job by getting attention on him, because this is also like kind of in line with his character that he's playing in AEW. Like his AEW's character is kind of like this like annoying, corny dude, basically, which is kind of what people think of him. Like, which is smart, right? Like, it's like, oh, you guys think I'm this corny, like, lame guy who like just, you know, cares about like flips and stuff. All right, I'll be this corny, lame dude that you think I am, and he's leaned into that. I think some of this is a work, so I want to caution some folks because people got really upset about this. Sami Zayn fans got upset about this, and WWE fans got upset about this. First of all, we also got, well, I'll get to that last part in a second. So I think some of this is a work. What I will say, though, is I think and I also want to say, if this is how Ricochet feels, and I think the best promos is some stuff that has some truth to it, I'm sure there is some truth that there was a moment in time where he really wanted to leave WWE, and he felt like this was not serving him anymore. I don't deny that. Do I think that he was coming to work miserable every week? I don't know. I don't know. Like, I can only take his word for it. But he's also a wrestler, so he's a performer. So everything he does, I have to also take with a grain of salt. But he left. He let his contract expire, and then WWE apparently wanted to resign him, and then he left to go to AEW. So I think that it's clear that he was not happy there. I do think, so I respect that he's in a happier place. I respect that, like, yeah, Vince McMahon sucks. Like, his creation, a lot of his creative during that period, especially what Ricochet is talking about, particularly for anybody that wasn't Roman Reigns, was really bad. Like, there's no denying that, right? So I get that aspect of it. I think he was wrong to start bringing in other folks, because we don't know how those folks feel about their quote-unquote legacies with WWE. They've been there for long times, and they've re-signed a bunch of times. And I also feel like, I know he has no, for example, I'm a Finn Balor fan. Finn Balor is my favorite wrestler currently, still. Finn Balor's been in a kind of a rough patch, honestly, creatively. He came up, he looked like he was going to be the next big star in WWE, and then he got injured, and then it just, weird stuff happened where it just seemed like WWE didn't ever want to put the rocket ship back on his back. Vince McMahon got mad. They did a too sweet after a match with AJ Styles and buried him at one point. Like, it was all weird stuff. And yeah, I'm pretty pissed off at like how Finn Balor's career is gone. But it doesn't mean there's not appreciation for the work Finn Balor is still doing and has done during this time, because he is a performer and he is still putting his all in whatever he's doing, right? I think it's a little, I think when you start extending this to other guys' legacy of being killed, I think that does become where you're probably crossing the line a little bit, where it's like, hey, like, we don't know how Shinsuke Nakamura feels about his legacy. He may feel like, I'm happy that I became a Japanese star, but I'm happy that now I'm an American household name, and maybe I'm not the star I was in Japan in terms of like a world champion, whatever that means. Again, this is all scripted. This is all predetermined, right? Like, whatever that means, I'm not a world champion, but I'm still a household name. People know who I am. I have millions of fans now here in the U.S. and internationally that would have never known who I was. He may feel like my legacy is in a great spot. Yet Finn Balor is someone that I know for wrestling smarts and people who are, you know, doing, I don't want to diss Meltzer, I have no beef with Meltzer at all, but like, you know, people are like, oh, 5-star matches and everything. Like, it's like, oh, well, what he was doing in Japan was way better. It's like, all right, but some people might not care about Japan. Like, some people might not care about New Japan or care about Ring of Honor. Like, a lot of people who like wrestling do not care about that. In fact, I'd argue it's the majority. Like, I'm not even argue. I'll stand 10 toes down and say it is the majority. Do not care at all about Ring of Honor and New Japan and all these other indie promotions. So to put that out there, that these folks in their careers with WWE, whether all the ups and peaks and valleys of it, that they don't have meaning, and their legacy have been killed, when they've actually inspired millions of people and they've brought joy to millions of people, feels like a total like non-reading of the room from Ricochet. If this is him not doing the work and this is him fully being himself. So I disagree from that standpoint. I didn't think he should have brought anyone else into this. I also feel like he is playing into something that even if this is a work, I think he should be careful with. We have to end this, as far as the fan perspective and as far as the appreciating product perspective. We have to end this AEW versus WWE war thing that happens on the internet. And it's really toxic, and I really hate that Ricochet kind of like perpetuated it with these comments, even if they were personal to him. Because ask any wrestler who works for either promotion, or ask any wrestler who doesn't work for either promotions, but are in the indies and want to get there, or in TNA and want to get there. It is great for wrestling, the business, and for creative, and for the fans to have two prominent American companies doing as well as both of them are doing. Shout out to AEW. Got a lot of love for Tony Khan. I got to meet Tony Khan. He's been super gracious and nice to me. A lot of their team that I've gotten to meet, great people. They're an awesome team. I know I talk a lot of WWE. I don't watch AEW as a consistent basis, AEW, but I've been to shows. I've watched plenty of shows and watched main events, pay-per-views, obviously. AEW, what they do is phenomenal, man. They got some of the best athletes and best wrestlers in the world. Check it out. If you know you're a WWE person, and you're like, oh, AEW is new, I don't know what that is. Check it out. It's a ton of fun. It's different. So if you feel like, oh, WWE isn't speaking to me right now, check out AEW. It might speak to you more. If you want to see like awesome in-ring action, awesome athleticism, maybe a little tick up in the violence, like this is the wrestling promotion for you. And they also got some great people running it. So shout out to AEW. And shout out to WWE, because I've gotten to meet some of the folks at WWE as well. And they're also, just doing my work with Maggie Pro, they're also good people, professional, and have treated us really well. So shout out to both companies. And maybe this is why I kind of come from a weird dynamic that other people don't come from. But I'm speaking, forget about even my perspective of me knowing some of the people behind the scenes at both companies. I'm thinking about just as a wrestling fan. To keep crapping on the other product and trying to downgrade the value of the other product means you get less talent all around the world. You get less wrestling, and you get promotions feeling comfortable with where they're at. Like, we could put our foot in the back of WWE in terms of the problems they've had creatively, and they feel it more now than they ever would if there was not an AEW that's sitting there on the other side that's an alternative for people to turn to. It's great that you have AEW there. It's great that you have the ability to have talent get cultivated. And I'm not saying AEW is some minor league. It is not. But think about a guy like Powerhouse Hobbs, who's now Royce Keys, who people are excited about making his WWE debut at the Royal Rumble. You don't have that opportunity to have maybe that guy have that platform of him working at AEW for all those years, putting in great matches, putting in great work, being the character that he was, and getting the eyes and like, oh, this guy really has something. And then WB saying, hey, we want to give this guy an opportunity. Now you got another new face. For me, I think it's important. I'm going to say it as a black man. A black face coming to WWE in a prominent way and giving that kind of shine. Like, those opportunities don't happen if there's not an AEW on that other side. And the flip side goes for WWE. Because if you love what Ricochet's doing at AEW, because he's getting to be more like himself, he's getting to highlight more of his abilities, and he's being treated more like a star than he was at WWE, well, it's great. But guess what? He's probably getting paid way more handsomely, being treated with way more respect and more as a star because of the name and eyeball he brings from what? People learning who the hell he was when he got to WWE. So this whole, oh, I'm a WWE fan, so I got to crap on AEW every single time and like carry the water for Nick Khan and Triple H, or vice versa, that, oh, I'm an AEW guy, so I got to carry the water for Tony Khan and AEW and Warner. It's like, and again, I love both sides. Like, they don't need that. First of all, they're going to be fine. I promise. They'll be fine without you sticking up for the company. Like, they are very wealthy, they are very successful, and they're very good at their jobs. They'll be fine without you. But we don't need this war among the fans that, again, hurt the product. I hope AEW goes on for as long as possible. I hope WWE, which I don't think will ever go away, goes on as long as possible, because that means that, okay, that creates more talent, it creates more storyline possibilities. Like, we've seen people go to AEW, have struggles there, come back to WWE like Andrade, not have something here. All right, he goes back and gives AEW another try. And they're doing something cool with him where he's had this, not a new character, but like he's doing this thing where he's like having like he's giving like women his numbers in the front row and they give them kisses during matches. It's a nice twist on his character a little bit. He's doing fun work. And guess what? I get to see him on TV. I don't got to go on, some YouTube or some shady shite to see him wrestling somewhere in a bingo hall or something like that. Like, I like that he's wrestling in arenas still. I like that he has an opportunity to fail one place, go back and fail there and go back to the other place and then go back again. That's what's great. It's almost like sports where you see a basketball players or NFL players get to train teams and stuff. Like, the more teams, the better. The more content, the more competition, the better. I hope that, I know Impact's kind of become a minor league because they do so much with NXT, but I would love if Impact became a third brand that was also super big and was competing with WWE on that level. Like, the more the merrier. So I just reject this notion that we need to keep doing this thing where we got to fight, comparing WWE and AEW in terms of like picking sides. I think in terms of comparing products, I think it's totally fine to compare products. You can say, oh, listen, I think AEW had much better pay-per-view. I think this match here was best match of the year, even better than anything in WWE. We could do that. That's totally fine. I think that's fair. That's like rap, right? We do that all the time. But, I go back to something Triple H said, and he talked about this when he was taking over creative with Vince, when he started, changing some things about the show. And they're like, oh, like, people are really enjoying the changes, like, what went into that. And he was like, listen, this is all wrestling. At the end of the day, it's like ice cream. Ice cream is good. We all love ice cream. You may like strawberry. I may like vanilla. It doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm wrong and you're right. It's just how we approach things, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter per se. And that's kind of how I feel about the AEW WWE thing. Like, there are people who tell you, oh, AEW is way better. It's way more violent, way more better action in the ring, and it's just better stuff. And I'm like, okay, like, I watch WWE more, and I'm more inclined to watch WWE. I do like AEW a ton, and they've, again, treated me great. And they do awesome shows. Some of my favorite storylines from the past few years have been AEW storylines. Swerve versus, what's the name? Why am I blanking right now? That's crazy. I'm blanking. Adam Page. Jesus, why did I blank on Adam Page's name? That's crazy. No, but Hangman Adam Page and Swerve. I even think Hangman Adam Page and John Moxley. Like, it's back to when CM Punk was in AEW, CM Punk and MJF. And MJF recently mentioned how he felt like that was probably one of CM Punk's best feuds of his career, and I think he's right. MJF and Chris Jericho, MJF and Adam Cole, former WWE talent and NXT talent. Like, so I have plenty of great memories and great, appreciation for the work that AEW has done. I was there for the first match they had at Grand Slam, which was Bryan Danielson versus versus Kenny Omega. Still probably the best match I've seen in person. Classic match. Didn't even end with a winner. It was just amazing graps. So, and you could love that. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, like, that means that everything at WWE sucks and they don't know what to do. It's like, no, I like aspects of WWE. And yes, is it going to have some of the high wire act, high spots and choreography that some AEW matches have? No. Sometimes I actually kind of like that it doesn't. Sometimes I like that the match is kind of straightforward and don't look so choreographed. I think sometimes, from critiquing things, sometimes I think AEW gets a little too much in that bag. I like that sometimes there's just like fun character work on WWE. I like Vince McMahon always said that he thought WWE was a variety show. There's some parts of me that like the aspect of it being a variety show. Like, I want my pay-per-views to be wrestling, and they give you that for WWE. I don't mind Raw having spots where it's character work, where it's storyline and things like that nature. Where at AEW, they do have that aspect too, but they're very much focused on the ring work. And I love wrestling, but sometimes I need a breather. I don't need 6 matches in a row of great matches, 5-star matches. So like making an album, you know, and that's something my friend Lucas said all the time. Where like, you know, you're making an album, you can't have 10 bangers in a row. It's good luck trying to do that. But even if you do, it starts to all sound the same. None of the songs will be special. You need the slow song. You need the girl song. You need, you know, the song that is good riding the car. That's what makes an album. And then when that banger comes on, you're like, oh, this is the banger. I'm waiting for the song of the album. It makes it work, right? But all of this, again, is ice cream. That's my kind of message to this. And I thought that the comment about Sami Zayn particularly, I thought was definitely off base for Ricochet. There's no way in hell that, and I do not mean disrespect to El Generico's legacy, to say that he has a better legacy than Sami Zayn is out of his effing mind. Out of his effing mind. And I know how important and how to Sami Zayn's career, the El Generico career is, and how long that legacy is. The feuds with Kevin Steen and the feuds with the what's it called, Nick and Nick Jackson and I'm not having that show today. The Young Bucks. I can't remember people's names today. With feuds with the Young Bucks, feuds with Kevin Steen. Like I understand all that. Like, still, this guy main evented WrestleMania. Like, and I know you're like, oh, who cares? Like, no, that's a big freaking deal. He main evented WrestleMania, and the first tag match in however many years since, what was it? Hogan and Macho and Mr. T to main event WrestleMania, and it was one of the greatest tag matches of all time with him and Kevin Owens and the Usos. And like, that's why, again, like the pretentiousness of it, which screamed like what sometimes you hear from AEW fans, was like, get out of here. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, you know how important that was in Sami Zayn's career? I know you may say, oh, a Johnny Knoxville match or whatever. And my friend Lucas, I know, worked on that match. He's talked very extensively. Check out our podcast, Off Script, which is on New Generation Podcast Network, to find that conversation. It's in there somewhere. But he talked about making that match. And Sami Zayn talked about that's arguably the best match of his career. It stole the show in Dallas. In a pay-per-view that was kind of, That was a great moment. Everyone had low expectations, and that was so fun. Sami Zayn was so good in that match. And guess what? That also is wrestling. Like, the 5-star, 40-minute barn burners are wrestling, but so is the celebrity matches that surprise you with all these wacko things and a big mouse trap and all these different people from Jackass showing up. Guess what? That also is part of wrestling. That's part of the it's been always a part of wrestling. When we think about the beginning of celebrities appearing in the first WrestleManias and all, like, that's a part of this. It's a show. I just hope everyone kind of like, it's not. I think that's why Ricochet's able to say what he wants. And I feel for him if he feels that way about his career. He has every right to feel that way. I think, again, he may be a little misguided in that, like, I think the work with WWE has done a lot for his career and his life that I think that he maybe at one day later in his life will understand, because I'm someone who would not know who Ricochet was until he got to WWE. And that's a lot of folks. That's the majority of people that watched him in WWE. So, but I get personally, whatever you're dealing with, personal demons, personal mental health, that's your own thing, and I respect that completely. But I just didn't like that he perpetuated this AEW versus WWE thing, and what you like with WWE is actually not good and therefore is meaningless. When we don't know if it's meaningless to those guys, is also kind of disrespectful to the fans that are appreciative of Sami Zayn's career and is appreciative of Finn Balor's career and is appreciative of Shinsuke Nakamura's career. I know it may not be the 5-star matches that you live and dream about that he was doing that they were doing in Japan and stuff, but it still means a lot to a lot of people. I think just Lucas taught me a lot, and a lot of talking to people about wrestling has taught me a lot. Seeing this stuff up close and personal has taught me a lot. Like, this, it's just a lot bigger than what the internet is when it comes to the wrestling conversations, and I had to get that off my chest. That's gonna do it though for night 22 of 40 Days and 40 Nights. We'll be back day 23, Jordan Day or LeBron Day, depending if you're a Jordan or LeBron guy. Begins tomorrow. Again, big news tomorrow, 9:15 a.m. Keith McPherson joins me live to talk Yankees baseball, pitchers and catchers beginning, and the start of Major League Baseball spring training. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Again, if you enjoyed this show, be sure to do me a couple of things. Number one, if you like this video, I'd appreciate that. Give me a like. Give me a subscription. Subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. If you follow me on X, follow me, EJ_Stewart. If you follow me on Instagram, Action EJ. Like I said before, all episodes get podcasted on our podcast channel, like our show Off Script with my guy Lucas Goldman. That can be found on New Generation Podcast Network. Search that wherever you get your podcasts. And when you're there, if you can do me a favor, also give us a 5-star review. And if you can write a review, even if it's short, all that stuff helps. We appreciate that. Give us 5 stars. Subscribe to the channel. All those things on the New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, very much appreciative of that support. Thank you guys again. Night 22 in the books. We get to hump day tomorrow. Jordan Day / LeBron Day. 23 begins. We'll have Keith McPherson in the house from WFAN to talk Yankees. I'm sure we'll get into plenty of fun stuff that's happening from tonight that we'll talk about in the morning. I hope you guys enjoy your evening. I'm EJ Stewart. I'm hungry. I need to get some food. I'm starving. I don't know why I'm so hungry. I'm going to go get some food and enjoy the rest of my evening. Hope you enjoy the rest of yours. See you guys later.